Chapter 768. Han Fei's eyes were full of shock. It was not because of what the man said, but because the guy who appeared in front of him was a human being. It didn't have a tail, and it didn't have a mouth full of steel teeth. Instead, it looked like a pure human. This person had the appearance of a young man. His facial features were regular, and there was a heroic spirit between his brows. He also had the aura of a scholar. Moreover, the clothes he was wearing were not battle robes, but a set of muslin clothes. He reminded Han Fei of a person that Han Fei had almost forgotten, Li Huang from the Undersea City. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. "Are you a wisp of soul or a drop of essence blood?" The man asked. "Sure enough, aren't you surprised that I'm not of the same race as you?" Han Fei pretended to be stunned. "Human?" The man laughed and said, "Aren't you human?" Han Fei thought quickly, "Do I look like a human being?" The man laughed. The strong sea demons can basically transform into human beings. Of course, there were also people who could transform into sea demons. Don't you agree? Han Fei raised his eyebrows. "I don't know what you are talking about." The man shook his head slightly. "Don't hide it. Although it's much harder for a human to transform into a sea demon than a sea demon to transform into a human. However, it was not impossible. If you weren't a human, you wouldn't be able to enter the 72nd floor. If you weren't human, how could you have barged in so easily? Do you really think that your innate talent is boundless?" When Han Fei was about to speak, the man said, "You must not know that the so-called 72-floor demon realm does not refer to the 71st floor below. They were all used to help others cultivate. But, because of this, the ancient 72-floor demon realm is called the ancient 72-floor demon realm." Han Fei took a breath. "Then, what's different about the 72nd floor?" The man turned into a human and walked casually, looking Han Fei up and down. "Can you still change back? If you have cultivated the demonification technique and don't have a way to reverse it, you shouldn't be able to enter. But now that you're in the form of a siren, you can probably change back, right?" Han Fei was surprised. "How are you so sure that I'm a human being?" The man nodded. Han Fei asked again, "But if you are a human, why isn't the ancient 72-floor demon realm built on human territory? What if it's in the territory of the sea demons?" The man smiled faintly and said, "Because of the vicissitudes of life, the human territory was submerged, and the ancient 72-floor demon realm was also submerged. Originally, this place was full of spirit chi, and there was no demonic chi. But later, this place was filled with demonic aura, and it became a sacred cultivation ground for sea demons." Han Fei was thinking calmly. He felt that he had been cheated too many times. For example, the people in the Snow God's palace were also full of nice words at first, but they turned out to be a bunch of liars. What if he returned to his human form and this person said, "Okay, so you really are a human"? What could he do when faced with such words? Seeing that Han Fei was thinking, the man said lightly, "Did you see the demon steel below when you came in?" Han Fei nodded. "I did." The man smiled warmly and said, "Originally, there was no tablet here. After I died, I erected this monument to protect the 72nd floor." Han Fei frowned. "Protect what?" The man put his hands behind his back and raised his head slightly. "I see. This place is called the ancient 72-floor demon realm, a sacred cultivation ground for our human race. As long as you are talented and enter the 72nd floor, you can learn the way to enter the Soul Sea. Do you know the Soul Sea?" Han Fei was shocked. Soul Sea? He really wanted to know the answer to this question. The Soul Sea was a good place. He had entered it by accident. Then he possessed Little Black and ate crazily. His level soared rapidly, and it was simply the best place for spiritual beasts to upgrade. Han Fei lowered his head, and his eyes were full of horror. No one had ever mentioned the word Soul Sea to him. But today, at the top of the ancient 72-floor demon realm in the 10,000 Demon Valley, someone mentioned it. The man smiled gently. You know it? It's incredible. It turns out that after the Age of Chaos, there are still people who know about the Soul Sea. Han Fei looked up. I once heard about the Soul Sea in a secret realm called the Snow God's Palace. However, I only know this name. It seems to be a place where spiritual beasts live. The man looked at Han Fei's eyes, and after a long time, he smiled and said, It seems to be a good excuse. You have a strong demonic aura, so you have to change it back to normal in order to enter the Soul Sea. You just need to know that I don't have to lie to you. Otherwise, why haven't I let a sea demon come up since ancient times? Han Fei was silent, thinking quickly. After thinking for a long time, he finally couldn't think of any way to verify the identity of the other party. Suddenly, he heard the man say, You don't believe me, so you want to verify whether I am a human or not? Han Fei was stunned. How did he know what he was thinking? The man smiled gently. Follow me. The two of them walked through a vast cave. Han Fei found that this cave was much larger than he had imagined. Even the 71 floors below were not as vast as this one. The man took Han Fei to a circle of murals and chuckled. Look, this is the scene of the ancient 72-floor demon realm being submerged. Look at this person, it's me. Following the direction of the man's finger, Han Fei saw a cylindrical giant city in the mural. 10,000 Demon Tower? As soon as Han Fei said this name, his eyes suddenly became blurred. His consciousness seemed to be sucked into the mural. The next second, he entered an illusory world. This was a very obvious illusory world. Han Fei was like a bystander, standing high in the sky. At that time, the 10,000 Demon Tower was indeed built on a piece of land. Whoop! Several figures passed through the sky, but unfortunately, there was no sound. Not far away, about 20 kilometers or so, there was the coastline. A huge octopus, larger than the sea monster he had imagined, larger than the cloud whale he had seen. At this moment, it was swinging its huge tentacles and slapping them. Above the sky, there was a giant void handprint, slapping from the sky to the ground. Perhaps because the speed was too fast, the big handprint ignited heavy flames in mid-air and bathed in the fire. In the cylindrical city not far away, thousands of people spread their wings, like big birds flying across the sky, and quickly rushed towards the coastline. Han Fei was shocked. They were all hidden fishers. Are they so worthless? These hidden fishers were like immortals, whizzing past in front of Han Fei. Han Fei could even see that many armorists' armor boxes had been opened, with streams of light spurting out. The hidden fishers rushed into the deep sea and disappeared. Suddenly, Han Fei was attracted by the crimson above his head. He couldn't help but be shocked. Who was fighting in the sky? Crimson light illuminated the entire sky. Then, Han Fei saw a human being and a monster of unknown species covered in scales with a long tail were fighting fiercely. The two of them punched each other hard. Every time they punched, the white clouds rolled, and the airwaves spread for thousands of meters without dissipating. When Han Fei saw the man's face, he was surprised to find that this person was the one he had just seen. This person was fighting fiercely, and his fist mark was as bright as the sun, as if he had blasted out a scorching sun, illuminating the sky. Just when the two of them were fighting in front of him, the man's fist mark, like a spurting fire dragon, punched through 100 kilometers and blasted the monster into the deep sea. Then, a huge octopus tentacle was pulled out of the void. It was grabbed by him with both hands, and with a pull, the giant octopus that seemed to be tens of thousands of meters tall was pulled out of the sea. Then, a giant 1,000 meters tall blasted it with his fist mark. However, the octopus was too huge, and the 1,000-meter-tall giant was no match for it. Just when he bombarded the octopus, above the sky, a starlight flickered and fell from the sky. How could Han Fei see this level of attack clearly? In an instant, a harpoon and this person's fist mark collided. However, this person didn't block it. His fist was shattered, and a big hole was pierced through his chest. This person finally stopped using his fist, but pulled out his sword. The sword swung like a rainbow, scattering the clouds for dozens of kilometers, and swept upward. However, the harpoon was like a bright sun, shattering the sword's shadow with a single strike, and the floating waves dispersed the clouds for hundreds of kilometers. Then, a big hand came out of nowhere, holding the harpoon, and the other hand dragged this person, flying towards the cultivation canyon, which was the current ancient 72-floor demon realm. In Han Fei's eyes, the last thing left was a delicate and very beautiful woman. The woman was wearing a thin gauze dress. Wait, that was not a gauze dress, but fins like a holy gauze dress? Han Fei immediately looked at the woman's legs. Yes, she had a pair of legs and feet, and they were very beautiful. She didn't wear shoes, and her little feet were very white and tender. Han Fei was surprised. A mermaid. The picture suddenly disappeared, and this magnificent picture, like a 5D movie, suddenly disappeared. Han Fei's mind returned. Han Fei turned his head in astonishment and looked at the person. The person nodded. Yes, there are royal families among the sea demons. The real sea demon powerhouses are too powerful, and even I can't resist them. Han Fei took a deep breath. Then the woman just now, has she turned into a human form? The person nodded. Of course, and she is very beautiful. To be precise, none of the sea demon royal families are ugly. Even those ordinary clam girls are so beautiful that it's tempting. Han Fei took a deep breath. Then where does she live? The person was taken aback, and there was a trace of astonishment on his gentle face. No, it's been so many years. How would I know where she lives? Young man, there are still many beautiful women. Even if you find her, she is too old. Maybe she has already become a pile of bones. Han Fei rolled his eyes. No, I mean, where is this race? Now, this place is full of inferior manfish, red demons, half-mermaids. There have never been such beautiful women here. The person chuckled. Nonsense, they live on the other side of the infinite ocean. Of course you can't see them. It's impossible for you, a peak-level hanging fisher, to cross the infinite ocean. Han Fei asked, what strength do I have to cross the infinite ocean? The person looked at Han Fei thoughtfully. Have you ever thought about the infinite ocean? You haven't fallen in love with a mermaid royal family, have you? Han Fei was about to explain when he heard the person say, actually, it's nothing. In history, there was a period of time when the human race and the sea demons were quite harmonious. They traded goods with each other, and there were many marriages. Han Fei was shocked. What? There's such a situation? The person smiled and said, of course. In the end of cultivation, is race important? I once read an ancient book, which said that a guy married an octopus as his wife. TSK. I heard that his wife was very smart. She changed her personality every day, and he fell in love with a different personality every day. TSK, I really don't know how he could stand it. Han Fei. The person said, okay, let's not talk about this. My time is limited. Can you turn back into a human first? First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 769. In this case, this person was so sure that he was a human. What could he do? Besides, if this person wanted to attack him, he wouldn't be able to escape. Did he want to possess him? It was impossible that the demon purification pot could kill him. In this case, Han Fei's expression changed for a while, and in the end, he chose to change back to his human form. This person saw Han Fei suddenly lying on the ground, then his muscles bulged, his meridians protruded, and his face was hideous and painful. Tisk, it's really a transformation technique, but it's still so painful. I don't know where you've gotten this kind of opportunity. This kind of secret technique is rare in the world. If it were in peacetime, it would be useless, but now it's very useful. Han Fei was hideous and couldn't speak. Every time he transformed, he had to experience unbearable pain. It was truly the kind where one's bones were ground to dust. The pain was deep in one's bones. Han Fei asked, Can you turn around? This person sneered. Haha, you're quite proud. Having said that, this person turned around in the end and didn't intend to make a move. Seeing this scene, Han Fei was really relieved. Otherwise, if the other party attacked, this would be the best opportunity. After a while, Han Fei's bones were elongating, his skin and flesh were changing, and his skull was also changing shape. However, his human appearance reappeared, but he was not wearing clothes. Voila! A robe was put on his body, and Han Fei's chest heaved up and down, his face full of relief. Han Fei calmed down. Senior, what's your name? This person had already turned his head and seemed to be recalling. Me. This is something that happened a long time ago. My name is Shu Shan, the mountain that moves mountains. Han Fei had returned to normal. He twisted his body a little and found that it was better to be a human. No matter how he moved, he felt very comfortable. Han Fei breathed a sigh of relief. Senior Shu, I just saw that you were pierced and seriously injured? And what does the Royal Mermaid have to do with the fall of this place? Shu Shan said lightly, when you reach the strength of a law enforcer or above, you will find that it's not easy to die. Of course, don't court death. After all, people will really die. As for the Royal Mermaid, Shu Shan seemed to be lost in memories again. After a long time, he slowly said, Actually, the sea demons you see now are all inferior species, including those half-mermaids. This ocean was vast and boundless. Just the boundless sea domain alone was hundreds of millions of miles wide. All you need to know is that there are countless living races in this world, and the mermaid race is only one of the top races. The merfolk royal family is even more superior than this race. Han Fei was shocked. Many races? Shu Shan squinted at Han Fei. I won't tell you so much now, or it will only affect your belief. Depending on the level one reached, one would have to meet certain people. The sea region is vast and boundless. Even if I tell you now, it's useless. Han Fei fell silent. Wasn't Xia Xiaochan a mermaid royalty? After all, she was the so-called Pearl Princess. She couldn't possibly be a commoner. However, there seemed to be something wrong with Xia Xiaochan's identity, and it didn't seem safe. However, with his current strength and capital, even if he sacrificed the entire Thug Academy, it would be useless. With Chun Huangyan's strength, it would be a piece of cake for him to move the Sea Demon Mountain. Who on the Scattered Stars Island could do that? Shu Shan ignored Han Fei's silence and said quickly, Remember the Soul Sea secret. I don't have much time. I can't stay here for long. After you've memorized it, take me out. I don't know how many years I haven't been out. Han Fei asked in surprise, The Soul Sea secret? Shu Shan chuckled. Of course. Why else do you think I asked you to turn back into a human? It seems that sea demons can't enter the Soul Sea. I don't know, but the secret left by the ancient human experts in the 72-floor soul realm can't be used by sea demons. If they can't use it, they can't go up to the 72nd floor. Han Fei hurriedly followed Shu Shan to a stone tablet. He was so excited that he couldn't help but ask, Can the Soul Sea secret really enter the Soul Sea? Shu Shan nodded. What else do you think? In ancient times, human beings were able to stand on the top of the world because of the Soul Sea secret technique. However, not everybody can enter it. That's why the 72-floor soul realm was created. If you can't reach this place, you can't practice the Soul Sea secret technique. So, do you know how hard it is for me to wait? Nowadays, human beings are useless. They can't even enter this small place. I'm so worried. Han Fei thought to himself, how can you blame human beings? Look, human beings don't even have a foothold in the world now. They've already flown to the sky. How can they establish a territory in the sea? Like the previous words, there were about 8 lines of words engraved on this last wall. Anyway, Han Fei didn't know them, so he just memorized them. Releasing his spiritual force, Han Fei began to copy the first line without saying a word. However, this time, Han Fei's expression was extremely solemn. This kind of blocking force was more than 3 times that of the previous floor. Seeing that Han Fei was forced to copy, Xu Shan's expression was serious. Don't force it. Gather your spiritual force between your eyebrows and drive it with your soul. Han Fei glanced at him. It's easy for you to say that. I've already done enough, okay? However, Han Fei still did as Xu Shan said, and felt that his speed was 20% faster. 100 minutes. Half an hour. Half an hour. When the last line of words and the last character were copied by Han Fei, he was stunned. Suddenly, there seemed to be countless mysterious symbols emerging in Han Fei's mind. Immediately afterward, the symbols that he had copied before reappeared in his mind. Then, they interweaved and changed with each other, and finally turned into a circular pattern, like an array. Wow! It turns out that these are not words. Han Fei was speechless. No wonder he couldn't understand it. Turned out that those so-called words were actually lines, but they were twisted into the shape of words. And the order was all messed up. Only when the complete lines were obtained would this picture be formed. After the picture appeared, before Han Fei could check the data of the demon purification pot, he felt his head shake and his consciousness was instantly pulled out. When Han Fei opened his eyes again, he found that the world in his eyes had changed. This was the world with fish eyes, and his eyes were like King distorted magnifying glasses. Han Fei turned his head and looked to the side, only to see that Little White was swimming beside him, and he had once again possessed Little Black's body. Clatter! In a dazzling flash, a silver-scaled fish swam past him. The fish scales were shining, and Han Fei was tempted by it. In his eyes, information emerged. Name: silver-scaled fish, primitive spiritual beast. Introduction: a kind of silver-armored fish, with strong defensive ability. The silver-scaled fish is ferocious and has an amazing bite force. There are 3 silver wheels on its tail. Its power is comparable to that of a high-quality spiritual weapon. Level 45 quality rare contains soul power greater than 1,559 points. The silver-scaled fish slapped its tail, and a ripple was thrown on him. It was gentle and not an attack. Han Fei was overjoyed. Could he quickly improve the strength of Little Black and Little White? However, suddenly, Han Fei found a small problem. He didn't have the desire for blood as when he first came here. He seemed to be able to completely resist Little Black's desire. No. Little Black, how can you not have desire? Have you drunk too much spirit awakening fluid recently? Then Han Fei rushed up and bit the belly of the silver-scaled fish. It's not like I haven't eaten it before. I've eaten it twice. It's quite delicious to eat fish as a fish. How could the silver-scaled fish expect such a change? It was bitten through and immediately began to struggle violently. However, what was the use of this? Han Fei had already started eating. The big mouth gnawed all the way, and in the end, even the bones of the silver-scaled fish were gone. When Han Fei finished eating, he found that there were very few primitive spiritual beasts that he could see. Han Fei was stunned. Was he too ferocious just like last time? Did he scare away all the other primitive spiritual beasts? However, he didn't care about this. He saw a crab disguised as a stone, rushed over without hesitation, and bit through the crab's shell. After a while, it seemed that Han Fei's gluttony also aroused Little Black's fierceness. Han Fei rushed all the way with Little White, gnawing all the way. Swish! This was the 3rd time Han Fei saw Little White burst out with light. He had leveled up 3 times in a row. This feeling was very good, very good. Just when Han Fei wanted to continue gnawing, suddenly, he felt a sense of crisis. When this crisis came, suddenly, his consciousness became blurred. When he came back to his senses, he had already appeared in reality. F***CK, why is it gone? Han Fei was dumbfounded. I was having a good time, but I suddenly came back. What does this mean? Han Fei tilted his head, only to see Shu Shan looking at him strangely. What did you do in the Soul Sea? You're quite fierce. You didn't fight with primitive spiritual beasts as soon as you went in, did you? Second update. Please vote. End of this chapter. Chapter 770. Han Fei didn't like this feeling of going in and coming out inexplicably at all. However, in his Soul Sea, where did that sense of danger come from? Would Little Black and Little White be okay? Han Fei immediately asked, Senior, do you think the primitive spiritual beasts in the Soul Sea will attack each other? Shu Shan looked at Han Fei as if looking at an idiot. Isn't that obvious? Spiritual beasts are also living creatures. Although I don't know where they come from, they will also fight. Many primitive spiritual beasts are very fierce. However, under normal circumstances, spiritual beasts that have signed a contract with human beings will not fight. Because spiritual beasts can absorb nourishment from the Soul Sea and don't need to fight. Han Fei asked, when will they fight? Shu Shan glanced at Han Fei weirdly. It seems that you've just been through a battle. Usually, this will happen when the soul power of the spiritual beast is weak or when it is provoked. This is a mystery, and I can't answer you. Han Fei wondered. Anyway, I have never heard of anyone's spiritual beast dying inexplicably. I think there must be other rules in this. Senior, when can I go in again? Let's go out first. When Han Fei looked again, he found that the twisted lines on the wall were missing 3 lines. Han Fei asked again, Senior, where did these words go? Shu Shan said anxiously, Of course they were erased. We can't leave the things of our human race to sea demons, right? The seal of the 72-floor soul realm has been broken. In the future, sea demons will definitely come in. Don't worry about the Soul Sea for now. Come here, I left a lot of things. You can put them away first. As soon as Han Fei heard this, his eyes lit up. This was a super strong master. The things left behind by him must be extraordinary. Shu Shan was speechless when he saw Han Fei's eyes. Why are your eyes so bright? That's my stuff. I just want you to keep it for me. Han Fei. Walking to the side, Han Fei saw a corpse surrounded by wine jars. He looked like a drunkard who drank himself to death. Beside him, a jasper-like shell fell to the ground. There were gloves, rings, and bracelets hanging on the man's arm. Sun Moon shell? Han Fei was surprised. This was good stuff. He had only seen it once on the dragon boat. After that, he had never seen it again. Shu Shan said, I put it with you temporarily. Leave the bracelets and put the rest away. Han Fei's eyes glowed. It was obviously a good thing. He really wanted to take it away. However, Shu Shan didn't look like a bad person. This Shu Shan didn't look like a bad guy. Han Fei was surprised. Senior, once I go out, I'll be interrogated. Senior, you think I can take these away? If my guess is right, you will. You and I have a small world. Just now, you have the bracelets. Put the bracelet on your hand and put everything else into your little world. It's not that I'm stingy, I'll give this ring to you. What's this ring? Fate this ling divine ling out, king, I have you, an N and an En is, from a C to B a yang, the supreme grade divine weapon is yours. Hearing that it was an ultra-quality divine weapon, Han Fei immediately picked up the ring. Are you kidding me? How can I just throw away an ultra-quality divine weapon so casually? After a while, after putting away the Sun Moon shell, the glove, and the ring, Shu Shan said, Okay, put on the bracelet and quickly change back. Let's go out. As he spoke, Shu Shan entered the bracelet like a wisp of green smoke. Han Fei was lost for words. Wait, I've just changed back? A voice came from the bracelet. Nonsense, the seal of the 72-floor spirit realm has been broken. What are you still doing here? Hurry up and take me out. I've been here for countless years. I've had enough. Han Fei thought for a moment. No, Senior, if I put on a bracelet now, someone will definitely notice it. Can't you enter the sea swallowing seashell? The bracelet said, "No sea-swallowing seashell or sun-moon shell can absorb my universe bracelet. Don't worry, they won't be able to find me. I can turn invisible." As soon as Han Fei grabbed the interspatial bracelet, the bracelet in his hand disappeared without a trace. He couldn't see it at all. Even though he was still holding it in his hand, his eyes could no longer see. Han Fei observed with the eyes of true vision, but there was no trace of it. Han Fei thought for a while, put the interspatial bracelet on his hand, and then held his breath. Then, he convulsed again and fell to the ground. In the outside world, countless people were waiting. Han Fei was already on the 72nd floor. As long as he came out of the 72nd floor, everyone would know what was on the 72nd floor. This was also the reason why Blue Feather and the others came here. Otherwise, a place like the 72-floor spirit realm, where only demonic creatures below level 50 could enter, wouldn't attract the attention of these big shots. Someone was discussing, "Do you think Yu Fei will be directly accepted as a disciple by Lord Blue Feather when he comes out?" Someone was thinking, "It's possible. However, I haven't heard that Lord Blue Feather has the habit of accepting disciples." A heavenly talent guessed, "If he comes out of the 72nd floor, he will definitely bring out the secret of the 72nd floor. Maybe we will also have a chance to get it." Someone nodded. "Yes, no matter what he gets, it will eventually be taken back by the 10,000 Demon Tower." A heavenly talent was silent. "This person is too high profile. In human terms, the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. In fact, I don't think Yu Fei will have a particularly good end." Someone agreed. "If Yu Fei gets out of control, he may also be killed. However, the big shots actually don't need to kill him. Isn't it better to keep this kind of person?" More people sighed. They didn't expect that one day, an azure sea blue demon would go from the first floor to the 72nd floor in a row, which really subverted their imagination. Those ordinary half-mermaids only felt that Yu Fei was going to rise. Just when everyone was talking about it, they saw a figure walking out of the dark cave. That figure seemed to have walked out of an endless abyss, like a king returning from a battle. Covered in darkness, he walked with loneliness. However, Han Fei was holding a strange jar in his hand. "Hoo!" Roar. Ow! The ordinary half-mermaids screamed, one after another like a tide. But Han Fei was unmoved. He immediately saw Yu Ji standing next to the demon's steel. However, even if Han Fei saw Yu Ji, he didn't respond. This time, he had too many things to digest in the ancient 72-floor demon realm. The skyrocketing soul power, the dismantled demonic energy, and the soul sea secret technique. He had too many questions waiting to be asked by Shu Shan. He had to hurry up and settle the matter at hand. If he guessed right, he would definitely be interrogated, but he had already figured out a way to deal with it. In his mind, Shu Shan's voice sounded, "Sure enough, they are all inferior sea demons. There are also big demons. Forget it, I'm still a wisp of soul. In case I'm discovered, I'll hide first." Han Fei walked all the way down without speaking. He walked all the way to Yu Ji and glanced at the demon's steel. At this glance, he was speechless. "Why am I always the first?" Han Fei remembered Shu Shan's words. This ancient 72-floor demon realm was originally reserved for humans. Now, he believed it. He didn't think it was very difficult. It might have something to do with his luck, but anyway, it wasn't that difficult. Han Fei even felt that if someone like Zhang Xuanyu encountered this ancient 72-floor demon realm, he might also be able to make it. However, Han Fei's expression didn't change at all. "You're back?" Yu Ji looked at Han Fei with a complicated expression. She couldn't have expected that she had only been away for a few days, which was only about half a month, but Han Fei had done such an amazing thing in the 10,000 Demon Valley. Before Han Fei spoke, he felt a pressure coming and a voice sounded, "Everyone, disperse and continue to cultivate." Everyone was shocked. It was Lord Blue Feather. Sure enough, Only a genius like Yu Fei was worthy of Lord Blue Feather's attention. Even those half-mermaid heavenly talents had retreated, not daring to stay any longer. Yu Ji took a deep look at Han Fei and also retreated. After a few minutes, there was no one here, leaving only Han Fei standing here alone. A glowing figure descended from the sky. That person looked completely human, but his appearance was quite rough, and his face was covered with strange lines like tattoos. In his hand, he was holding an incomparably bright golden harpoon. At this time, these were all emitting dazzling light. He was wearing a shiny golden battlesuit, which was also dazzling. Han Fei cursed in his heart. Is this Blue Feather? What the F***ck? Behind Blue Feather, there were 5 people, including Qixue Huan. But there was no emotion on his face, nor did he make eye contact with Han Fei. Blue Feather's pupils were pure white. He looked at Han Fei for a while, and then smiled slightly. Legendary! Yes. Han Fei nodded stiffly, although he seemed to be shrouded by invisible pressure. Yes. Blue Feather stared at Han Fei. How do you feel after entering the ancient 72-floor demon realm? Han Fei knew that in the face of such a strong master, he couldn't neglect him. This wasn't something that could be brushed off with just a few lies. So Han Fei raised his head and looked at Blue Feather. The first 36 floors temper the body, but mainly guide the challenger to disassemble the demonic energy. I tried my best, but I could only disassemble it to half the size of the previous one. However, the effect is amazing. My strength soars without changing my realm. Seeing Blue Feather's indifferent expression, Han Fei continued, the last 36 floors temper the spirit and guide the challenger to remember strange characters. Han Fei paused and continued, on all the other floors, there is only one line of text. However, on the 72nd floor, there are 5 lines of text. In addition, on the 72nd floor, there is a human skeleton? Just like you, my lord. Han Fei's eyes flickered and he seemed to be curious about Blue Feather. Sure enough, Blue Feather's eyes flashed. This is also a kind of transformation technique. That skeleton is actually an ancestor of our sea demon clan. Han Fei was silent for a while. Do humans also look like this? Blue Feather didn't answer. Continue. Han Fei continued to answer. That person was surrounded by this kind of jars. With that, Han Fei picked up the jar in his hand. Blue Feather said, this thing has no value. It's just an ordinary wine jar, a jar that holds some kind of magical liquid. Seeing that Blue Feather was still looking at him, Han Fei said, the last 5 lines are extremely difficult. But like before, I can't understand them. I guess this should be a cultivation technique or a combat skill. Qixue Huan said at this time, write these words down. Han Fei nodded, raised his hand, used his finger as a pen, and drew in the air with demonic energy as ink. After a while, all the 5 lines were written down, without a single word missing. Since Shu Shan erased 3 lines, it meant that he knew that if the 3 lines were erased, the sea demons would never know the true meaning. Qixue Huan nodded. I got it. Go on. Han Fei thought for a while. There are no treasures on the 72nd floor, but the rock walls are engraved with murals. Looking at the murals, I witnessed a war. Suddenly, Blue Feather's eyes lit up. Tell me. The 3rd chapter. Please vote end of this chapter. Chapter 771. Facing Blue Feather's eyes, Han Fei was not used to it as if this person could see through him. Han Fei didn't hide anything and told him what he had seen. The 10,000 Demon Valley used to float on the sea. Humans have occupied this place, and the ancient 72-floor demon realm shouldn't be ours. In that battle, there were strange beasts flying across the sky, big hands covering the sky, and raging waves rolling more than 1,000 feet. I saw someone being pierced by a beautiful woman in a colorful gauze dress with bare feet. His weapon was broken, and his battle suit exploded. Han Fei seemed to be describing an epic, and Qixue Huan and the others' breathing became rapid. They hadn't entered the 72nd floor, so no matter how talented they were, they didn't know. Now, Han Fei said whatever he said. Go in yourself if you have the ability. Anyway, even if you go in, the picture you see is exactly the same as what I saw. But when Blue Feather bragged that Shu Shan was their ancestor, Han Fei laughed. He thought to himself, your ancestor is in my hands now. Next time you brag, you'd better prepare a good draft. Han Fei wasn't lying. Therefore, when he spoke of it, he was clear and logical, and described it vividly. Even Blue Feather could only nod in affirmation. Besides, others might not know so well, but Blue Feather knew that the 10,000 Demon Valley was indeed the territory of humans. Including the ancient 72-floor demon realm, it was also the territory of humans. However, he felt that since the sea demons moved in, it belonged to the sea demons. Besides, the ancient 72-floor demon realm had been a cultivation holy land for ordinary half-mermaids and half-mermaids since ancient times. There were only advantages and no disadvantages there, which was worth affirming. Blue Feather looked at Han Fei slightly. Not bad. You live on the top floor of the 10,000 Demon Tower. When Qixue Huan discussed with Han Fei before, he didn't intend to let Han Fei live in the 10,000 Demon Tower. In Qixue Huan's view, no matter how talented Han Fei was, he had to leave. Now, if he made some opportunities, there might be unexpected gains in the future. But Qixue Huan didn't know that Han Fei's talent was so high that it was shocking. The first time he came to the Cultivation Canyon, he passed the ancient 72-floor demon realm. There had never been such a genius in history. Qixue Huan said to Han Fei, go back to the weapon shop first. Someone will take you to the 10,000 Demon Tower. Han Fei nodded and turned to leave. After Han Fei walked away, someone said, Master, this boy is extremely talented, but his heart is not in the 10,000 Demon Valley. Are we going to kill him or keep him alive? Qixue Huan glanced at that person. Hai Xinlan, it's rare for the sea demons to have a peerless genius, but all you want to do is kill him? If so, when could the 10,000 Demon Valley conquer the Scattered Stars Island? People like you Fei might not be able to make much progress in the short term. But think about it, if you leave the Myriad Demon Valley in the future and become a real expert, do you think it will be good for the Myriad Demon Valley in the future? Yu Beichen echoed, there's really no need to kill him. After all, he's one of us sea demons, and he came from our Myriad Demon Valley. Why kill him? Blue Feather pondered for a moment. Qixue Huan, didn't you say that he promised a few things? Yes, my lord. Blue Feather said indifferently, the third thing is to let him go to the Scattered Stars Island. What do you think? As soon as Blue Feather said this, everyone behind him trembled. If a person like Yu Fei transformed into a human and sneaked into the Scattered Stars Island, he would definitely become a core member. He could even live in the Scattered Stars first unit, which would play a big role. Qixue Huan grinned. My lord, good plan. Han Fei didn't know that Blue Feather would make such a decision. If he knew, he would probably laugh out loud. I'm AF** King Human. You want me to pretend to be a human? It's funny no matter how you think about it. At this moment, Han Fei was asking Shu Shan a lot of questions. Han Fei said, it seems that they have passed this test. Will they break into the 72nd floor? Shu Shan responded, it's very difficult. It's just that the seal of the 72nd floor has been broken. Not everyone can climb to the 72nd floor. There have only been a few dozen sea demons who want to climb to the top for countless years. It's not a big deal. Han Fei asked, Senior, I have a question. According to the cultivation method of the 72-floor soul realm, is there a limit to disassembling spiritual energy? I feel that my strength has doubled. Shu Shan sneered. Do you have spirit awakening fluid? I'm too hungry and my spirit is floating. Can you think of a way to get me some? Han Fei was surprised. Spirit awakening fluid is very difficult to get. I only have a few 100 kilograms on me. Shu Shan said, give me a few 100 kilograms first. I need to stabilize my soul. Han Fei thought to himself, I still have a lot of questions. Anyway, the spirit awakening fluid was of no help to him, so it didn't matter if he gave it to him. Immediately, Han Fei gave him 462 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid. This showed that he really didn't have a few kilograms, which meant that he had given it all to Han Fei. More than 400 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid was swallowed by the invisible universe bracelet. After about 10 minutes, Shu Shan sighed. It's a little too little. Do you have any more? Han Fei smiled bitterly. Senior, do you think spirit awakening fluid is cabbage? You don't know the current situation of human beings. Humans all live in the sky and only have palm-sized territories in the sea. Shu Shan said in surprise, live in the sky? The immortal palace? How can you live in the immortal palace? Han Fei suddenly asked, Senior, where is the immortal palace? Shu Shan said, that's a place where strong people gather. It's not easy to go. If you don't live in the immortal palace, where do you live? Han Fei said, you live on the floating island, floating in the sky with the power of floating stones and arrays. Shu Shan nodded. No wonder. You're talking about that kind of floating stone. I didn't expect it to have such a use. After changing the topic, Shu Shan replied, this method of disassembling spiritual qi has been around since ancient times. The improvement of one's realm can lead to the improvement of the efficiency of the use of spiritual energy. Therefore, people speculated that if a drop of spiritual energy is split into 2 drops, will there be a qualitative improvement? Han Fei wondered, what I haven't figured out is why the power of a drop of spiritual energy doubled when it is split into 2 drops. Shu Shan smiled and said, it can't be doubled. It's still too early to know. The reason why the power is almost the same when it is split into 2 drops is that people don't give full play to the energy in every bit of spiritual energy. After the separation of spiritual energy, it can only be said that your spiritual energy control efficiency has reached 50%. Correspondingly, your combat power has been greatly improved. However, your strength has not doubled. When you have a chance to fight with all your strength, you'll know. Han Fei was surprised. Only so little control? What will happen if I can control it 100%? Shu Shan snorted. What are you thinking? The separation of spiritual energy becomes more and more difficult. The 72-floor soul realm is just the foundation. Many people can't even reach 50% control, let alone complete control. This is a painstaking effort, which requires extremely high soul power and spiritual power. This is why the 72-floor soul realm is called the soul realm. Otherwise, it should be called the spiritual realm. Han Fei thought, it turns out that the soul and spiritual power also involve the degree of control of spiritual energy. Han Fei asked, Senior, then what is considered complete control? After completely mastering it, what will the state of spiritual energy look like? Shu Shan was silent for a long time before he slowly said, do you know how to fold paper? In terms of the efficiency of the use of spiritual energy, it's like you want to fold a piece of paper infinitely. How many times can you fold it? In terms of the amount of spiritual energy, it's equivalent to splitting a drop of water into 2 drops, and 2 drops into 4 drops. It will be split endlessly and eventually become smaller and smaller. The degree of control of spiritual energy is getting higher and higher, but the difficulty of separation is also getting higher and higher. Therefore, it's almost impossible to completely master it. When Han Fei thought about it, he almost couldn't believe it. Wasn't it 2F*King difficult? To be able to fold a piece of paper 7 times was already heaven-defying. Han Fei didn't even dare to think about it. It was really difficult to use this as an analogy. However, Han Fei suddenly said, no. Senior, why do I have to fold so many times? According to what you said, if I fold it 3 more times, my control will exceed 90%, right? No, if I fold it 2 more times, it will be close to 90%. At that time, everyone will basically be in the same position. Isn't it the same? Don't laugh at me, no one is any better than the other. Shu Shan was stunned by Han Fei's words and pondered for a while. Then my description may not be right. I have to describe it to you with realms. Under normal circumstances, if you haven't reached the explorer level, you may not even be able to fold it twice. Han Fei said, Senior, it's boring to talk about realms with me. Explorer, believe it or not, I can take down the 10,000 Demon Valley by myself. Shu Shan said lazily, anyway, it's very difficult. Although Shu Shan's explanation seemed to be a bit problematic. However, this also made Han Fei realize the difficulty of mastering spiritual energy. It was more than difficult. It was as difficult as ascending to the sky. No, it was easier than ascending to the sky. But in any case, Han Fei had at least mastered 50%. His strength hadn't doubled, but it had skyrocketed. He was very happy. Let's talk about the future later. Han Fei immediately asked again, Hey, Senior, what is soul power? You just mentioned that when the soul power of the spiritual beast decreases, there may be a fight in the soul sea. What do you mean? 4th chapter. Asking for votes. Exciting and fast. I'll add more monthly votes in advance. The next 3 chapters or 4 chapters are not fixed. I'm not sure either. I might go back to my hometown in a few days. Let's see how it goes. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 772. It wasn't easy for him to catch a human grandpa, a prehistoric human being. He was much more reliable than those unreliable things in the snow god's temple. Of course, Han Fei had to hurry up and ask some questions. It seemed to be the first time for Shu Shan to chat with someone in countless years, so he said with a smile, As long as you are a creature, you will have soul power. Human souls are extremely mysterious, and the amount of soul power is incalculable. In the past, we found that the combat power of contractual spiritual beasts would decrease after a certain stage of battle. According to the degree of decrease, we calculated the soul power. Han Fei took a breath. No wonder all the primitive spiritual beasts I saw had soul power. Han Fei asked again, What about contractual spiritual beasts? Shu Shan shook his head. It's different. Spiritual beasts and their masters are almost one, so we can calculate. Contractual spiritual beasts are different. Although their soul power will decrease, you can't feel it. When you are strong in the future, you can only sense the soul power of your spiritual beasts, but not the contractual spiritual beasts. Han Fei seemed to understand. So, Senior, you mean that I am not strong enough to feel it? Shu Shan's voice buzzed. Yes. However, you don't have to worry about soul power. I don't understand it. You just need to know that it exists. It can be understood that it supports the strength of the spiritual beasts to fight for a long time, which is equivalent to the limit of the human body. You ask me what explanation I can give you? That is, there is a time limit for everyone to fuse with their spiritual beast. You can't feel it now because you are still weak. In the future, once you feel that the combat power of your spiritual beasts is weaker than before, you'd better not use them again. Han Fei asked in surprise, Will it have a big impact? Shu Shan said, Spiritual beasts can also die. They are not indestructible. After all, they are also creatures. If you are weak, you will be easily killed. Han Fei nodded thoughtfully. That's true. Hey, Senior, when can I enter the Soul Sea again? Shu Shan smiled and said, Generally speaking, it's easiest to enter the Soul Sea for the first time. Later, every time your soul breaks the barrier, you will have a chance to enter. Han Fei said in surprise, Soul breaks the barrier? Shu Shan said, You can also understand that when your spiritual body makes a breakthrough, or even when you have an epiphany, you may enter the Soul Sea. This matter was uncertain, but it was usually related to the turbulence of the divine soul. After entering the soul sea, did you eat fish? Han Fei raised his eyebrows. You even know that? Shu Shan sneered. Nonsense, I've been through it, of course I know. Normally, when people enter the soul sea, they can't help but eat to their heart's content and feel their spiritual beasts upgrade quickly, right? Han Fei nodded very cooperatively. It was just a whizzing sound. Just now, Little Black and Little White had leveled up 3 times. If he were to raise it for himself, how long would it take for it to level up? Shu Shan leisurely said, Actually, this method isn't right. Do you know why your spiritual beast can level up after eating someone else's spiritual beast? Why? Shu Shan, because it's the soul sea. If you swallowed a primitive spiritual beast, you actually swallowed its soul power. However, you swallowed a lot, but you couldn't digest it. Where did the soul power that you said you couldn't digest go? Han Fei really didn't know, so he immediately asked, Where did it go? Shu Shan sighed. When the soul power dissipates too much, it will condense and new creatures will appear. Can you imagine how much you absorb and how much you waste? The dissipated soul power because of some kind of resentment, let's take it as resentment. They gather because of resentment and turn into a powerful and weird creature. What do you think the result will be? Han Fei's heart immediately turned cold. They will retaliate against me. Han Fei was sure that if it were him, he would definitely retaliate. Anyone would feel resentful if they were eaten alive. If there was a chance to retaliate, he would definitely be retaliated against. For example, Chun Huangyan said he would kill him, so he killed him casually. Although you were also saving people, did I deserve to be killed? You are a super strong master, but I am just a weak chicken. Did I deserve to be killed? Shu Shan, look, you guessed right. So, at this time, the spiritual beast will automatically get rid of your control, and you will return to reality. After you leave, the resentment will have no way to vent, so it will be forgotten. Han Fei said in surprise, Wait, then isn't my spiritual beast still inside? Shu Shan, you are you, and your spiritual beast is a spiritual beast. These are 2 different concepts. This is the rule. No one knows what the soul sea looks like after returning to reality. So, everyone thinks so. Han Fei swallowed. Sure enough, there was no free lunch in the world. It was not realistic to want to become fat in one bite. After thinking for a while, Han Fei suddenly took a breath. Senior, you said that the newborn soul power became a new species. Doesn't it mean that the greater the resentment, the stronger the species born? Then are those super primitive spiritual beasts born in this way? The bracelet was silent for a while. Some people have thought about this, but no one knows the conclusion. Han Fei swam back with a cold face. Occasionally, he would see people looking at him. However, he didn't care. Han Fei asked, Senior, you said that you only have a wisp of soul left now. What do you do then? Can you possess me? Do you want me to find you a half-mermaid and let you possess it? F***ck off. Shu Shan said angrily, I am an orthodox human being. Why do I have to be a fish? If you want to find someone, you have to find someone from the Merfolk clan. Han Fei was speechless. He seemed to have figured out this guy's personality. He had a gentle temperament, was casual, generous, and could even talk nonsense. Han Fei rolled his eyes. Mermaid? I don't know where the mermaid clan is. How can I find a mermaid for you? Shu Shan exhaled. Then you can find me a human. Han Fei said seriously, Senior, that's not right. I'm a good person, why should I be possessed by you? Shu Shan snorted. Did I say I would find a living person? Just find me a dead one. If I go in, won't he be alive? Han Fei was speechless. Senior, take a look at where we are first. We are in the 10,000 Demon Valley. Yes, this is no longer your city. Now it is a gathering place for sea demons. There are no people here. I can't leave for the time being. Shu Shan didn't care. You will leave sooner or later. I'm not in a hurry. I don't want a good one. I want a good one with a high spiritual heritage and a good physique. Han Fei's face turned black. I'll give it to you. Do you want it? On Han Fei's wrist, the bracelet immediately vibrated. Okay. You are not bad and talented. You are no worse than the heavenly talents of our time. Han Fei sneered. What's wrong with me? Han Fei said, Okay, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I won't be able to leave for a while. In a few days they will take me to some secret realm. There will be a lot of heavenly talents there, which means there will be a lot of treasures. Maybe I can grab some spirit awakening fluid for you. Yu Ji's weapon shop. Yu Ji had been waiting here. When Han Fei came back, Yu Ji looked strange. Did you borrow my power to enter the 10,000 Demon Valley? Han Fei looked indifferent. No, I just happened to meet you. Yu Ji looked a little unhappy. Happened to meet you? Although I knew you were extraordinary, I didn't expect you to be a legendary creature. A legendary creature is afraid of you? Han Fei was silent. I didn't know any combat skills at that time. Yu Ji changed the topic. I heard that you promised Master Qixue 3 things. Then, you should owe me a favor and promise me one thing, okay? Han Fei froze for a moment. I saved your life. Okay. He was quite embarrassed to say that. I just used you to enter the 10,000 Demon Valley. If I hadn't let you go, would you have survived? I would have chopped you into fish cutlets. But at this moment, Han Fei was in the 10,000 Demon Valley and had to be careful, so he looked at Yu Ji. What's the matter? Yu Ji also said coldly, I haven't decided yet. I'll tell you when I do. After this is over, you and I will have nothing to do with each other. Han Fei said casually, Okay. Behind him, Yu Fu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Han Fei really didn't tell Yu Ji anything. But then again, it made sense. How could a heavenly talent like Han Fei care about such trifles? It's a pity that if I had known that this thigh was so big, I would have hugged him. This is a real big thigh. Han Fei stayed in the shop for about half an hour. A half-mermaid swam over, and this was a good-looking half-mermaid. When this person saw Han Fei, he immediately nodded. Master Yu Fei, Master Qixue arranged for me to follow you. My name is Yu Qi. Your cave residence is next to Miss Yu Ji's cave residence. Would you like to go there now? Hearing this, Yu Ji widened her eyes and couldn't help asking, Why is it next to my home? Yu Qi said respectfully, Miss Yu Ji, this is Master Qixue's arrangement. Han Fei said indifferently, Let's go. Although Yu Ji was a half-mermaid, Han Fei actually didn't hate her. This woman had the perseverance and temperament that she should have. If it weren't for her hatred of human beings, Han Fei felt that they might have become friends. But now this was impossible. If they met again in the future, there would be a life-and-death battle. Even after leaving the 10,000 Demon Valley, Han Fei felt that he was very likely to kill her. So at this time, there was no need to have too much contact with her. The 10,000 Demon Tower. On the top floor, Han Fei looked at the circular pillars inside, but in fact, his mind had already flown away. Since he had been to the ancient 72-floor demon realm. In that case, it was time for Little Black to steal the treasures after a short period of time. After all, the purpose of sneaking into the 10,000 Demon Valley was to steal. If there was something good, he would want to take it away. It would be best to make the people in the 10,000 Demon Valley panic so that he could think of a way to escape. At this moment, he heard Yu Qi behind him say, Master Yu Fei, are you going to cultivate now? If necessary, Yu Qi is waiting outside. Han Fei suddenly asked, Well, did Master Qixue give me anything? Yu Qi. Han Fei said with a straight face, Spiritual spring, spiritual stones, weapons, and so on. I heard that those who live here all have semi-divine weapons. Yu Qi, first update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 773. Sea demons advocated fighting. Every day they either swam in the sea or fought with various marine creatures. In the 10,000 Demon Valley there was a place they liked very much, and that was the Sea Demon Coliseum. Somewhat different from human arenas, the Sea Demon Coliseum didn't have the so-called competition bet. They simply advocated force and hoped to see the violent aesthetics of blood and fury. Perhaps this was actually part of their nature. After all, before the awakening, the strong preyed on the weak, or in other words, the big fish ate the small fish. That was the law of survival for the sea creatures. The Sea Demon Coliseum was the only building in the 10,000 Demon Valley developed and built by sea demons themselves. The Coliseum was built on the hillside, and the auditorium rose layer by layer on the hillside. Perhaps the aesthetic of sea demons was too unique. The bottom circle of the circular Coliseum was carved with nearly 100 kinds of marine creatures. These lifelike statues were like a rushing tide of fish, surrounding the combatants in the center. Moreover, in the Sea Demon Coliseum, there was not only flat ground like in human arenas. There were strange rock walls, coral plants, and trees. In the 5-football field-sized field, there were all kinds of barriers. According to Yu Chi, if some of the barriers were accidentally broken, the entrance to the cellar would be opened. At that time, other creatures would be released. At that time, the combatants would have one more enemy out of thin air. At this moment, Han Fei was standing in front of the Sea Demon Coliseum, listening to Yu Chi's detailed description. It had been 7 or 8 days since he moved into the 10,000 Demon Tower. Han Fei felt that the Sea Demon Pirate had disappeared for a long time, and it was time for him to come out. However, Han Fei was very cautious. As the only Azure Sea Blue Demon in the 10,000 Demon Valley, it was easy for people to think of him. There was no pirate in the 10,000 Demon Valley. How come there was one when you came? Therefore, Han Fei had to make an alibi for himself. So, how could he make this alibi? Haha, wouldn't it be great to let tens of thousands of people witness it at the same time? When Han Fei came here, he didn't take Little White with him. And Little Black had sneaked out with Overlord. What Han Fei had to do now was to go to the arena and fight a few exciting battles. Yu Chi asked, "Master Yu Fei, you have just started cultivating and haven't watched the battles in the Sea Demon Coliseum before. Don't you need to watch for a few days? Let's just watch the game and fight." At the entrance of the Sea Demon Coliseum, the half-mermaid guards were stunned when they saw Han Fei. At this moment, who didn't know Han Fei's deeds? He was the only heavenly talent in the history of the Myriad Demon Valley who had walked through the 72-floor ancient demon realm. It was said that such a prodigy was awakened by a legendary creature. This matter had already spread like wildfire in the Myriad Demon Valley. It was said that there were many people in the neighboring Blood Sea Valley who wanted to meet this lord. Some people also heard that a few days ago, after the news that Han Fei passed through the 72-floor demon realm spread, the sea demons in the Blood Sea Valley even held several carnivals. For no other reason than that Han Fei, like them, was not a half-mermaid after awakening. Therefore, these days they all felt very proud. Master Yu Fei. When the guards saw Han Fei, even though they were unwilling, they still lowered their heads. After all, this Yu Fei might become a super-strong master like Qishuahuan in the future. Now, they naturally didn't dare to show the slightest dissatisfaction. Han Fei said with a cold face, "How do I participate in the battle?" Before the guard spoke, a half-mermaid in a bright red battle suit came up to him. "I didn't expect you to come to the Sea Demon Coliseum." Han Fei tilted his head. "You are." The man grinned, revealing a mouthful of steel teeth. "The manager of the Sea Demon Coliseum, Yu Xian." Han Fei frowned slightly. This person didn't flatter him and spoke arrogantly. Han Fei nodded. "I'll fight." Yu Xian stretched out his hand. "Come with me. This game is already halfway through. In fact, even if you don't come, I will go to you. You don't know how many people want to challenge you." "Challenge me?" Yu Xian grinned. "Although you are a legendary creature, and have walked through the 72-floor ancient demon realm. However, after all, you are not at your peak. In the Sea Demon Colosseum, there are many famous heavenly talents, and their strength cannot be underestimated. So, it's normal for someone to want to challenge you. Besides, if it's not a life-and-death battle, killing is not allowed here. Han Fei asked, "Are there many people willing to participate in a life-and-death battle?" Yu Xian glanced at Han Fei and bared his teeth. "You want to fight a life-and-death battle? Then I guess no one is willing to fight you. Now that you are famous, if you lose to you, you will die. What if I win? I'm afraid you will also die. So, who do you think will fight you?" Han Fei frowned. "Why?" Yu Xian glanced in the direction of the 10,000 Demon Tower. "King Feather has seen you in person. Who dares to provoke you blatantly? If someone really kills you, do you think King Feather will not punish them? Of course, there may be some people with brain problems." Yu Xian smiled faintly. "Oh. As soon as Han Fei walked into the Colosseum, he saw countless spectators suddenly take 2 steps forward, raise their hands high, show their mouths full of steel teeth, and suddenly roar. After roaring, these half-mermaids retreated one after another, looking at the center of the arena meticulously. At first, Han Fei thought they were cheering for him, but their eyes were focused on the center of the Colosseum. It turned out that in the arena, a stone wall seal was broken. A blazing fire fish came out of nowhere and enveloped one of the fighting half-mermaids in flames. Because of this mistake, another half-mermaid seized the opportunity. He drilled out from the other end of the maze-like stone wall, shot the harpoon in his hand, and directly sent the half-mermaid flying, rolling on the ground more than a dozen times. Yu Xian said, "The Sea Demon Colosseum is actually to hone everyone's combat skills, not combat strength. This is also what we sea demons lack the most. I heard that human beings have a lot of skills, and we must keep up." Han Fei looked at the maze-like scene in the Colosseum, watching a half-mermaid being pierced by a harpoon, and frowned. "He's stabbed to death. What should we do?" Yu Xian said, "He was not stabbed in a vital part. Of course, being pierced also means that he lost." Sure enough, the pierced half-mermaid lowered his head, put his hand across his chest, pulled out the harpoon with difficulty, and then retreated to the edge of the Colosseum. And the blazing fire fish that popped out was about to attack, but it was killed by another half-mermaid. A male half-mermaid floating high in the arena, seeing Han Fei at the entrance, immediately bared his teeth and roared, "Look, our peerless heavenly talent is here. This is the greatest miracle in the history of the 10,000 Demon Valley. Yu Fei, are you willing to fight? You will be the brightest star on the field, as gorgeous as the flashing lamp grass." "Ho!" Countless half-mermaids looked sideways at the entrance, roared, and then became motionless. Han Fei couldn't help but want to laugh. These half-mermaids all stood and watched the show, their expressions very rigid. Except for roaring when they were excited, they didn't say a word at other times, and their faces were expressionless. Perhaps they would also use voice transmissions to exchange insights or something like that. Han Fei nodded slightly to the half-mermaid in the sky. The half-mermaid immediately roared, "Look, our most dazzling heavenly talent has nodded. He agrees to fight. The strong will always raise their noble heads, and fighting is always the way for you to advance. Heavenly talents, please pray to the Sea King and follow his will to fight." As soon as this person's voice fell, more than 30 figures appeared over the Colosseum, men and women, all peak-level powerhouses. These people were even carrying golden harpoons. Han Fei was speechless. "I don't even have a F*King golden harpoon, and I dare not take it out from Forge the Universe." So Han Fei looked at Yu Xian solemnly. "Don't you want to change your weapon?" Yu Xian said, "Yes. The weapons will be the same. Don't worry about that." Han Fei didn't even look at those people. Although there were a few familiar faces among them, Han Fei felt that he didn't need to worry at all now. Because he didn't really come to fight. At this moment, Little Black had entered the commercial area of the canyon, and Han Fei, under the guidance of the waiter, walked in from the east side of the Colosseum. In front of Han Fei, there was a small platform less than 50 square meters, which could be regarded as the entrance. Not far away there was a high stone wall, more than 10 meters high, but it was not continuous. In front there were strange stones, corals, seaweed, scattered randomly. All of this could be regarded as a real simulation of the scene at the bottom of the sea. However, Han Fei's attention was not here. He found that this sea demon Colosseum turned out to be a large space with 10 times the gravity. 10 times the gravity, for a beginner hanging fisher, was no longer a particularly heavy gravity. However, in a gravitational environment, people's performance would definitely be affected. At least, gravity could greatly reduce your destructive power. Whether it was speed or strength, they would be affected. Moreover, this could suppress the battle to a smaller range. At this time, on the other side of the Sea Demon Colosseum, someone shouted, "Yu Fei, how about 20 times the gravity? Otherwise, although there are restrictions, I'm afraid the Colosseum will be damaged." Above the Colosseum, the host shouted, "I swear in the name of the Sea King, this will be a thrilling battle. Under 20 times the gravity, your strength will be suppressed in all aspects. But the premise is that Yu Fei has to agree." Han Fei raised his head and nodded gently. The host roared, "Look, heavenly talents are always like this, with absolute confidence. Audience, don't be stingy with your roars. Every battle is a valuable experience for all of you. In the future, on the battlefield, you may survive because of this." Roar, the roars went on and on. Han Fei felt the pressure on his body increase sharply. He twisted his body slightly, but in his heart, he said, "Do it." 100 kilometers away, in the canyon, in a weapon shop, a level 48 half-mermaid was knocked unconscious by a harpoon. Following that, a tower-like figure appeared, touched the divine artifact refining platform, and took it away. Han Fei learned from the experience of the last failure. These half-mermaids had good insight. If they didn't knock him out, it would be easy to be discovered. If they were discovered, they might not have a chance to continue in the next month or two. However, he couldn't kill them. After all, once he was killed, the matter would become serious. At that time, someone would try their best to investigate this matter thoroughly, which would be disadvantageous to Han Fei. In the Colosseum, the corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. Very profitable. Second update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 774. Compared with the tranquility of the canyon commercial area, the situation in the Sea Demon Colosseum was extremely tense and exciting. Facing this maze-like arena, Han Fei was completely unfamiliar with it, and his perception was also banned because it was a sign of cheating. Under 20 times the gravity, Han Fei wouldn't stupidly swim up to find the opponent. He walked in this chaotic maze. At this time, he didn't care whether he fought or not, as long as he could attract the attention of the audience. In the maze in the Colosseum, there were a lot of glowing seaweed and some invisible barriers. However, Han Fei had only swum 100 meters away and had already felt 4 barriers. He ignored them and pretended they didn't exist. Suddenly, one of the barriers flickered, and a big mouth as sharp as a scissors suddenly stretched out from the side cave. Roar! The audience cheered. Everyone could see that this was the first time Han Fei had fought in the Colosseum, so he was not in a hurry and seemed to be exploring. The activation of the barrier made many people cheer. They wanted to see Han Fei's reaction. However, Han Fei leaned back in a strange posture, raised the harpoon, and hit the creature's head. At the same time, he clasped the edge of the fanged mouth with one hand, and with a huge force, he directly pulled the huge sea centipede out of the cellar cave. This scene seemed simple, but it showed the wonderful melee between a human and a sea creature. There were thrills, battles, amazing reflexes, and violent aesthetics. In Han Fei's eyes, guilt emerged. Name: Six-winged centipede. Introduction: a dark creature native to the undersea caves, with a hard shell and sharp thorns. When in danger, countless sharp blades will extend from under the carapace, and it is called the sea decapitator. Its poison is fierce and can't be resisted. Level 49. Quality: rare, mutated, contains spiritual energy greater than 3,889 points. Edible effect: long-term consumption can increase poison resistance. Collectible: 6 origin pill bead. Absorbable: the moment Han Fei grabbed the six-winged centipede, a cold light stretched out, and the big centipede's body curled up and sharp blades flew out, trying to smash Han Fei into pieces. Han Fei put the harpoon on the ground with one hand, blocked the blades, and launched the 17 dragon fists, which bombarded the six-winged centipede like a tide. Crack, crack, crack. A large number of blades were broken. Under 20 times the gravity, Han Fei's fist still turned into a shadow and blasted the six-winged centipede 100 meters away, landing in a corner of the labyrinth and disappearing. Ho! Seeing this scene, many people were cheering. They were amazed by Han Fei's reaction just now. In particular, the speed of Han Fei's punches and the kind of violent fist marks that easily blasted the six-winged centipede half to death. This was the power that people admired. In the audience, a heavenly talent occupied a corner. Someone said lightly, "After all, this is the first time he has come to the Sea Demon Colosseum. He doesn't know the rules." Under the increased gravity, he burst out with obvious signs of battle, so Fish Roll could only find his position. "Of heavenly have with him is with." Someone nodded. "But this Yu Fei is not without talent." When the six-winged centipede attacked, it was extremely fast. It was not easy for him to deal with it calmly in such a short time. Just now, a sharp blade landed on his body. On the other side of the Sea Demon Colosseum, the half-mermaid Heavenly Talent named Heavenly Talent Yuan had already started to move after hearing the noise. His tail flicked slightly and he swam quickly among the reefs and seaweed until he found Han Fei's exact position and hid in the dark of a three-way intersection. Seeing this scene, many people nodded, thinking that Yuan's move was excellent. He could attack and retreat, and when facing an enemy of equal strength, he could easily kill him with one blow. As soon as Han Fei walked out of the stone wall, he saw corals and reefs in front of him, and without thinking, he walked straight in. However, as soon as he passed a reef, a harpoon flashed with demonic energy and stabbed at him. In that instant, Han Fei's reaction speed was extremely fast. With the Flying Flower Demon Flash, he flashed 10 meters away from Yuan. However, the Flying Flower Demon Flash also had a drawback, it was easy to be discovered. When Han Fei's figure appeared, the harpoon stabbed at him again. Han Fei turned his hand and put the harpoon upright in front of him. With a clang, Han Fei was hit by a huge force and slid on the ground. In a roar, Han Fei held the harpoon with one hand and blocked Yuan's blow. At the same time, he punched out with the 17 dragon fists, and terrifying demonic energy burst out like a stream of light. Bam! Yuan was also a heavenly talent with rich combat experience. How could he be hurt by Han Fei's casual attack? He suddenly took back his harpoon and flicked his tail, shattering Han Fei's blow. Yuan sneered in his heart. A legendary creature? A peerless heavenly talent? It turned out that he was nothing more than this. But in the next second, as soon as he looked back, he saw that the sharp horn of a harpoon had been pressed against his neck. In the next second, a reef behind Yuan shattered with a bang. It was shattered by the blast of this blow. Oh! The audience suddenly cheered. It was too fast. Han Fei's reaction just now was too fast. Someone shook his head slightly. Yuan is too careless. Who does he think he is fighting? Can't you see through a character who can pass the 72-floor demon realm? A heavenly talent took a breath. It was so fast that I didn't even see it clearly. Yu Fei's attack speed is probably the same as that without gravity. Someone nodded. Indeed, Yuan deserves to lose. Yu Fei's reaction speed is really too fast. Who's going to fight next? I'll go. Me! Let me feel it first. The host roared above, audience. Did you see that? The battle between heavenly talents is actually no different from ordinary battles. Sometimes, even if you have the upper hand, it will still be useless in the face of absolute strength. This is a wonderful battle. Although it's not a big fight, it shows subtle and classic close combat. The battle in the Sea Demon Coliseum was in full swing. In the commercial area of the canyon, a wisp of Han Fei's soul was in the Overlord's body, cleaning up the material room of another weapon shop. It's already the second shop. It's amazing. Our souls are so far away, but they can still perceive each other. I wonder if they can still perceive each other from tens of millions of kilometers away. Looking at the half-mermaid lying on the ground, Han Fei set up a seal here, jumped into Little Black's mouth, and continued to move to the next shop. In the 10,000 Demon Valley, sea demons actually didn't need so many things. They didn't have strange food, nor did they have as many activities as humans. There weren't any places like the logistics division of the Scattered Stars Island either. It seemed that this canyon was either a place that sold weapons, spiritual fruits, or all kinds of strange things from the sea. Although sea demons didn't have the concept of antiques, they could still distinguish the quality of some things according to the strength of their spiritual energy. In addition to these, there were also flashlight grass monopoly, coral ornaments, shell betting, sea listening conches, combat skills exchange. These were not worth much, but there were a lot of transactions. At this moment, Little Black sneaked into an ultra-quality demonic weapon refining shop, which was guarded by two peak-level hanging fishers. At this moment, the two were talking. Hey, who do you think robbed Yu Laosan's shop a while ago? I heard that the place was so clean that there was nothing left in the store. The other half-mermaid smiled and said, he must have been lazy and forgot to guard the shop when he went to watch the fun that day. But that thief was really cruel. He didn't leave a single low-quality material for him. That's right. I heard that old Yu is so poor that he can't even eat. He said that he was going out to dig for treasures to pay off his debt. Ha ha. Anyway, it's none of our business. Our shop belongs to Miss Ing. Who dares to touch it? Suddenly, the two were shocked. They wanted to look back, but it was too late. A mottled stick smashed into the head of a person, knocking him unconscious. After all, no one would have thought that someone would use a sea-quelling bizarre treasure as a stick. No one would believe it. With a sea-quelling bizarre treasure, who would care about a small shop? The other person was about to attack, only to feel a pain in his neck. He felt that if he dared to move, he would be bitten to death. An awkward voice transmission sounded. Do you want to faint yourself, or do you want me to do it for you? The man. After a while, Han Fei dragged the two of them to the material room. He really wanted to laugh out loud. There were more than 60,000 caddies of spiritual spring, which was worth more than 60 million points of spiritual energy. Han Fei quickly collected the materials and stored the spiritual spring in his sea-swallowing seashell. After setting up the barrier, Han Fei walked out of the cave, glanced at the ultra-quality refining divine platform, and smacked his lip. This thing is also advanced. Just when Han Fei was about to jump into Little Black's mouth, his soul trembled slightly. It seemed that someone was coming. Immediately, under the black hood, Han Fei stood behind the wall like a statue. When a half-mermaid came in, he said in surprise, Old Jia, where is the refining divine platform? Is old Jia's shop going to change its business? The Overlord was a semi-divine weapon, a weapon. Who would be able to detect a weapon? As soon as this person shouted, he suddenly felt his scalp go numb, and then with a clang, he fell to the ground. Throwing this person into the material room, the blue flames in the Overlord's eyes flickered. No, I have to speed up. Once someone finds something wrong, it will be difficult for them to steal again. Han Fei thought for a while and suddenly had an idea. Let's take a risk. Stealing twice is enough. If I do it a third time, I'm afraid someone will be waiting for me. Little Black, let's go to the bottom of the canyon, the one with the biggest business. The third night watch. Please vote. It's the third night watch today. There should be a lot of people at work. Be careful. End of this chapter. Chapter 775. This time, Han Fei's theft was very secretive. He knocked over the shop assistant and locked him in the material room. Of course, there were also obvious signs that Han Fei had stolen their refining divine platform. It didn't matter if it was anything else, but it was too much for him to steal the refining divine platform. That was an item placed in the hall by the guy who made a living in a smithing shop. You took it just because you said so. Have you considered the feelings of the crafting shop? So when he went out, he even sealed the door of the shop. At this moment, Little Black sneaked into this refining shop called Cold Armor Divine Weapon. Han Fei had heard about this shop from Yu Fu. It seemed to be the only weapon shop that could refine divine weapons on this side of the canyon. There were a total of 2 refining divine platforms in the shop, one for refining ultra-quality demonic weapons, and the other for refining semi-divine weapons. However, it was said that the refining divine platform for refining semi-divine weapons was only used a few times a year. The main reason was that the materials were difficult to find, and few ordinary half-mermaids could afford it. And the real heavenly talents had other ways to get semi-divine weapons. Therefore, the main purpose of this semi-divine weapon refining divine platform was to attract customers. After all, many people would buy ultra-quality demonic weapons. At the same time, Han Fei also knew that the person behind this refining shop was Yu Hanjia, who ranked last among the 8 wings of Blue Feather. It was said that Yu Hanjia once fought with a human powerhouse and was seriously injured. As a result, his strength could no longer make any progress. Therefore, he liked to accept apprentices the most. Didn't it cost money to accept apprentices? He raised his apprentices as his own sons and nephews, feeding them all kinds of good things, which of course cost money. In view of Yu Hanjia's previous contributions, his refining shop was opened, and it was very popular, receiving orders from big customers. Generally, more than 10 ultra-quality demonic weapons were traded at a time. However, the shop was a good shop, but there were a lot of people in the shop. The 3 refiners took turns to refine weapons to increase the efficiency of refining. It was said that occasionally, refiners above level 50 would come to refine weapons with semi-divine weapon refining divine platforms. Han Fei waited outside the shop and observed for a while. After the customers inside left and confirming that there were no powerhouses above level 50 here, he let Little Black swim in. Han Fei didn't know when someone would come to this shop again. But now was definitely the best time to rob them. It shouldn't be a problem for him to kill these half-mermaids by himself. Anyway, Han Fei felt that stealing twice was enough. As a semi-divine weapon, the Overlord was not just for show. Any semi-divine weapon represented power. Little Black do it. Of the 3 blacksmiths, one was forging while the other 2 were chatting. Suddenly, the 3 of them felt a strong sense of danger. Not good. The half-mermaid who was refining threw away the solution in his hand and was ready to possess his companion's spirit. But before he could do anything, he heard a crack and felt a pain in his neck. Then, he knew nothing. Han Fei made up his mind to rob them this time. However, this family was not easy to deal with. There were 3 of them here at the same time. Han Fei could kill 2 of them at most, and the third one would definitely run away. Therefore, although it might cause great repercussions, Han Fei was still prepared to kill these 3 half-mermaids. When the time came, he would throw them into his sea-swallowing seashell, and no one would find them. Then, the Overlord took action, and the terrifying power of the embroidery needle burst out. At the same time as Little Black took action, the Overlord suddenly appeared and smashed down with his rod. Bam! In the blink of an eye, the Overlord killed a person on the spot. At this time, The arrays on the Overlord's body were fully activated, and he was ready to kill the other one. The other person's reaction was also very fast. As soon as the Overlord appeared, because it didn't choose to attack him, he had already retreated to a dangerous distance, possessed his companion's spirit, and shouted at the same time. Come on, however, before he shouted, he only felt a chill on his neck. Immediately, this person burst out with amazing fighting intent, and a spiky carapace was attached to his body. In the next second, sparks flew from his neck, and Little Black had already bitten him. This person was horrified. There was something in the nothingness, some kind of invisible creature, whose bite force was so strong that even the ultra-quality battle suit was dented by it. At this time, the Overlord had already taken action. Han Fei stood at the entrance of the cave, stomped his foot, and a soundproof array appeared. The half-mermaid held a harpoon and roared, "Are you a human?" The Overlord was bombarding him. However, this was a refining shop, and refiners usually had more than one demonic weapon. This refiner directly detonated his demonic weapon, blowing up the seal set up by Han Fei. Han Fei immediately had a bad feeling. He forcibly separated a wisp of his soul and prepared to possess this person. Originally, the soul he gave to the Overlord was less than 1/10 of his own. At this time, if he divided a little more, his control would definitely be weaker. But as long as the other party paused for half a second, the Overlord could kill him. At this moment, Han Fei couldn't care less. His soul floated out and rushed into the other party's mind. At that moment the other party paused. The Overlord followed closely and smashed through the other party's chest with his rod. Little Black took the opportunity to rush up and bite him several times in a row. At this time, the other party's demonic weapon was destroyed and his defensive power was greatly reduced. Little Black went up and bit off the person's neck. However, although the person was dead, the traces of the battle had already burst out. Han Fei waved his hand, put away the 2 refining divine platforms at lightning speed, and then quickly rushed into the other party's material room. When he entered the material room, his heart couldn't help but tremble. There were all ultra-quality materials, and even stronger materials. In the center of the material room there was a huge vat. Han Fei suspected that there were at least 100,000 caddies of spiritual spring in it. Without the slightest hesitation, the Overlord quickly took action. 5 minutes later, outside the cold armor divine weapon shop, a sea demon guard was rushing over. Faster than the sea demon guard was a ferocious half-mermaid. His whole body almost turned into a streamer, jumping directly to the refining shop. However, in the aftermath of the battle, no one noticed that the water rippled a little, and an invisible fish quietly drifted out. The rushing half-mermaid frowned slightly. He felt that it seemed a little strange just now, but he couldn't tell why. He thought it was caused by his anger and urgency, so he didn't think too much about it. Little Black swam along the rock wall of the canyon unhurriedly to the Sea Demon Colosseum. In the Sea Demon Colosseum, Han Fei was fighting the 3rd battle. After 2 battles, Han Fei had completely figured out the rules here. The establishment of the Colosseum was more like a real simulation game. While guarding against enemies, he also needed to guard against those creatures that suddenly appeared. The surrounding chaotic terrain was just to let people show their personal advantages more cleverly in the encounter. However, even though he had figured out the rules of this game, Han Fei still didn't intend to follow them. What he needed to show now was strength, weirdness, and eye-catching. At this moment, Han Fei had fought several battles with a guy who could turn into water doppelgangers. Suddenly, Han Fei sensed that Little Black was exposed and a little of his soul had collapsed. This made his whole body tremble slightly. At this moment, 3 spears shot at him from 3 places. Han Fei slapped the wall with one hand, moved his body sideways, and inserted the harpoon in front of him, blocking a spear. At the same time, he stretched out his hand, grabbed the last spear, and crushed it with one hand. Suddenly, Han Fei moved. Under everyone's expectant gaze, He suddenly began to rush to the coral reefs on the left at an extremely fast speed. The harpoon in Han Fei's hand shot out with billowing demonic energy. In a flash, an invisible water wave was quietly approaching. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. Just at the moment when the invisible water wave approached, Han Fei suddenly gave up the target in front of him, turned over, and punched out violently with the 17 dragon fists. In an instant, fist shadows filled the sky, and fist marks like compressed cannons gushed out one after another. "Did you do it on purpose?" the man behind him exclaimed, but it was too late to resist. Han Fei's fist marks were too fierce. After only one punch, he had already fallen into a series of bombardments. After 17 punches, the man was already lying in ruins. In the past, among these sea demon heavenly talents, some could still fight to a draw with Han Fei. But at this moment, after the growth of his realm, the breakthrough of the art of invincibility, the mastery of the method of disassembling spiritual energy, and the strengthening of his soul, Han Fei was confident that few people in this so-called barren land could be his opponent. On the Colosseum, the host was roaring, "When you are strong and have extraordinary combat experience, victory is only a matter of time." Han Fei looked up at the host and walked out. "I'm not going to fight today." "Huh." The host received Han Fei's voice transmission, froze for a moment and then roared, "Audience, we should always sum up our experience in battles. This is the capital for us to continue to grow and even surpass the evil human beings. Today we have witnessed a legendary battle, and we should reflect and think about it. In the future, you will also become legends in the eyes of others." Out of the sea demon Colosseum, Yu Qi followed him. "Master Yu Fei, where are you going now?" Han Fei shook his head. "Go back and cultivate." Yu Qi was stunned. Even a legendary talent has to work so hard. "It seems that I have slacked off before." But what Yu Qi didn't know was that a little fish had appeared beside Han Fei. With a thought from Han Fei, the little fish disappeared without a trace. Back home, Han Fei's serious expression finally couldn't be restrained. He was instantly ecstatic. "Ah! I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich this time." If someone saw Han Fei dancing with joy at this moment, they would definitely think that Yu Fei's image had been ruined. Was this still the cold and proud Yu Fei? Was he king psychopath? Chapter 776. Han Fei took back his soul, but it seemed to be missing a little bit, which seemed to have been destroyed in the battle. But Han Fei didn't mind. After all, the price of sacrificing this bit of soul was a huge amount of resources, which was very worthwhile. Retrieving Little Black and Little White, Han Fei didn't enter Forge the Universe. Forge the Universe was no longer like a place where vegetables and fruits were grown. Those things were too fragile to withstand the slightest disturbance. The big red trunk lay inside, occupying a large space. On the way from the Sea Demon Mountain, he had hunted thousands of food creatures, occupying the remaining half of the space. At this moment, there was only a quarter of the space left for him. With a thought, a pond appeared in Forge the Universe, and several sea-swallowing seashells crazily poured spiritual spring water into it. He looted 4 shops in total. The first 2 were small shops similar to Yuji's blacksmithing shop. One had 38,000 caddies of spiritual energy, the other had 40,000 caddies of spiritual energy, the third had 52,000 caddies of spiritual energy, and the fourth had 100,000 caddies. The total was 230,000 caddies of spiritual spring, which was about 230 million points of spiritual energy, enough for the deduction of the void fishing art. Of course, it was also enough for the upgrade of his spiritual heritage. Plus the spiritual fruits he had, Han Fei didn't have to worry about not having enough spiritual energy in the short term. In the future, if he had a chance to return to the Scattered Stars Island, he would buy tens of thousands of spiritual fruits and store them. What was left were large tracts of materials and several refining divine platforms. Why did he rob the refining divine platforms? In Han Fei's opinion, this was also a very important thing. Sea demons could produce demonic weapons and even semi-divine weapons through this method. If the arrays on it were studied thoroughly, they could even benefit mankind. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. I wonder how old Guan and Mu Jiaer's semi-divine weapons are going? Just when Han Fei was stunned, Shu Shan suddenly spoke. He said, "That was a human-shaped semi-divine weapon, wasn't it?" Han Fei thought to himself, "You have sharp eyes." However, Han Fei wasn't afraid that Shu Shan would leak this information. He said casually, "Yes." Shu Shan was surprised. "You have a way to split your soul, but how did you make it go out?" Han Fei grinned. "It's a secret." Shu Shan clicked his tongue and said leisurely, "How big of a deal is it? Can you find a way to get me more spirit awakening fluid?" Han Fei was surprised. "You don't have enough?" Shu Shan was speechless. "You're only giving me a few 100 kilograms? How is that enough? My divine soul is a little weak now. Give me at least 10,000 kilograms to recover some of my strength." Han Fei rolled his eyes. "Why don't you just rob someone? Do you know how much a kilogram of spirit awakening fluid costs? On the Scattered Stars Island, 5,000 points per kilogram. Do you know what 5,000 points are equivalent to? The price of killing an ordinary half-mermaid was probably about the same. What you're asking me to do now is probably to help you kill 10,000 sea demons." Shu Shan sighed a little. "So exaggerated?" Back then, spirit awakening fluid wasn't difficult to get. Han Fei was amused. "Mr. Shu, what era did you live in? What era are we living in now?" Shu Shan said resentfully, "All right then I can hold on for a while. However, if you can get me 10,000 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid, or give me some life fruits, I will tell you a secret." Han Fei couldn't help but be surprised. Life fruits were not easy to get. That thing could only be born when a sea demon realm powerhouse died. Han Fei couldn't help asking, "What secret is so valuable? Now tell me." Shu Shan sneered. No way. What if you covet my treasures and kill me? Besides, I am still young. I only lived more than 800 years when I died. Don't call me Mr. Shu. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. "You are more than 800 years old." But then Han Fei said in surprise, "Wait, how strong were you at that time? Didn't you reach the venerable level when you were more than 800 years old?" Shu Shan said angrily, "F***ck off. Who do you think venerables are? Do you think I can cultivate them just because you say so?" Han Fei smiled innocently. "Fine. Elder, please wait for me to fix it." Shu Shan snorted. "Remember, it is extremely difficult for a hidden fisher to break the barrier. Countless people will be stuck at that step. So, you have to stabilize your cultivation and don't be too hasty. Okay, someone is coming. I'm going to sleep." Han Fei was stunned by Shu Shan's words. It was difficult for a hidden fisher to become a law enforcer? A thought flashed through Han Fei's mind. He seemed to have overlooked something. "Yes. Teacher Xiaozhan is at least 30 years older than us. No, Teacher Xiaozhan experienced the battle when the Thug Academy declined. At that time, he must have been very strong. In this way, I'm afraid he is 40 years older than me." Han Fei couldn't help but think about this result. For such a long time, Xiaozhan had been stuck as a peak-level hidden fisher? Or, did he become a hidden fisher later and then get stuck? However, in any case, Xiaozhan was now a peak-level hidden fisher. There was no doubt about this. He was probably in his 50s. Han Fei thought about his current age. He would be 17 in a few days. He forgot the specific date, but anyway, it was almost the same. Wow. Let me stay as a peak-level hidden fisher for 30 years? Han Fei couldn't help shaking his head. This was absolutely unacceptable. With his gourd in hand and many opportunities, he couldn't be stuck for so long. The outside world was so vast. If he hadn't seen Chun Huangdian, he wouldn't have been so proud, but now Han Fei clearly knew that he might not even be a heavenly talent. What was there to be proud of? Because of this, when he saw those people looking at him enviously, Han Fei told himself every time that he was still far from being a heavenly talent. Han Fei. Inside the cave, next to the restriction, a conch was vibrating, and Han Fei couldn't help but find that it was equivalent to a doorbell. However, Han Fei's smile suddenly froze. Shu Shan is really cunning. After passing through the restriction, he could still feel that someone was coming to him. This meant that Shu Shan was far more powerful than what he said. If he wanted to attack him, the result would probably be unimaginable. Shu Shan must be warning him through this method. He is very strong and don't get any ideas. After leaving the cave, Han Fei saw several sea demons standing in front of the cave. Someone said, "Master Yu Fei, there was an abnormal theft in the 10,000 Demon Valley today. We need to conduct a routine inspection. Please open the restriction." Han Fei frowned. "Check me." The man hurriedly said, "No, we know that Master Yu Fei has just returned from the Sea Demon Colosseum. This is just a routine inspection. Everyone has to check it." Han Fei nodded slightly, waved his hand, and opened the restriction. Han Fei thought to himself, "Go ahead. Even if I have something, I can't put it here. What could be safer than putting it in Forge the Universe?" The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. Suddenly, he felt that he was being stared at. As soon as he looked back, he saw that Yu Ji had walked out of the cave and was looking at him. Han Fei thought for a long time and found that his relationship with Yu Ji hadn't deteriorated yet, so he nodded. "What a coincidence! Yu Ji." Yu Ji was speechless. "I live next door to you. What a coincidence." Soon, those half-mermaids came out and ran to Yu Ji. Han Fei thought for a long time. "Don't you cultivate?" Yu Ji said lightly. "I already know what happened to Yu Fu." Han Fei thought to himself, "Just let me know. Didn't I just kill his companion spirit? Could it be that you still want to punish me?" "Oh." Han Fei felt that there was no need to say anything, so he simply nodded. Just when Han Fei was about to go back to cultivate, he saw a half-mermaid, leaving a watermark in the water, landing not far from Han Fei and Yu Ji. Seeing that both of them were here, the half-mermaid couldn't help but put his hand on his chest and said, "Master Yu Fei, Miss Yu Ji, please go to the Earth-Fire platform." Han Fei's face was cold. "Where?" Yu Ji said lightly, "Follow me." The so-called Earth-Fire platform was actually at the bottom of the central area of the 10,000 Demon Tower. It was like a huge chimney which extended all the way to the bottom. When going to the central area of the 10,000 Demon Tower, Han Fei saw 5 huge statues of sea demons, holding harpoons high in their hands, standing in a pentagon formation, the tips of the harpoons close together. According to Yu Ji, this was the conference hall. Further down was the entrance of the chimney. All the way to the bottom, more than 3,000 meters underground, was the Earth-Fire platform. The so-called Earth-Fire was the underground magma. When Han Fei arrived here, he saw that except for a round platform, more than 300 meters down was all magma. The magma was tumbling and splashing in all directions. On the Earth-Fire platform, there were already more than 100 people standing here. Blue Feather stood on a high platform of the Earth-Fire platform, and behind him stood 4 of the 8 wings of Blue Feather. Among them, one was missing, and Han Fei didn't know why he didn't come. Behind him, there were 21 Sea Demon Realm, hidden fisher, powerhouses. Han Fei frowned slightly. Such a big scene? Qishua Huan glanced at Han Fei indifferently and didn't send a voice transmission or signal. When people arrived one after another, there were about 200 people in total. Not all of these people were at the peak level. Only half of them were at the peak level. Some were level 48 like Han Fei, and some were even lower. But their combat power was obviously not weak. It could be seen that all the people who came this time were heavenly talent. Standing in this group of people, Han Fei looked very awkward, just like Qishua Huan standing among the 8 wings of Blue Feather. Blue Feather looked down at the crowd and said lightly, "The 10,000 Demon Valley has been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. The last time I stood here was more than 30 years ago." Wow! Han Fei's pupils constricted slightly. He was possessed. Every time he heard the words "more than 30 years ago," he would subconsciously think of the Thug Academy. It should be okay. Well, this is the 10,000 Demon Valley, the territory of sea demons. Second update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 777. Han Fei stood in the crowd and waited quietly, waiting to see what Blue Feather was going to say. Blue Feather thought for a while and slowly said, "You are all heavenly talents of the 10,000 Demon Valley, and each of you is a treasure. You are qualified to know some secrets about this world." Han Fei tensed up. Am I going to know the secrets of the sea demon race? All the half-mermaids and half-mermen present were refreshed. Usually, only the strong would know a little about secret. Today, Lord Feather told them this because he recognized their status in the sea demon race. Blue Feather was very satisfied with the attitude of these heavenly talents and continued, "This world is very big, so big that it's beyond your imagination. And we, the Myriad Demon Valley, have a secret right under your feet. This earth fire platform can actually connect to another sea area, a sea area that we don't even know where it is." Suddenly, many people's breathing became rapid. Connect to another sea area? Han Fei was also very shocked. His understanding of this world was limited to the Thousand-Star City and the unknown place. Although he knew that there was another world outside the infinite ocean, it was too far away from him. But now, Blue Feather said that his feet could connect to another sea area. His first reaction was, could it be the place where Xia Shaochan and the others were? Blue Feather said, "In this world, there are marine creatures, sea demons, human beings. In fact, there is another kind of creature, they are spiritual plants." Han Fei's reaction was different from the others' shock. Han Fei's reaction was full of confusion. Spiritual plants? Spiritual plants are creatures. What's so strange about that? Blue Feather said leisurely, "Marine creatures can transform into demons. Have you ever thought that spiritual plants can also transform?" Wow! All kinds of incredulous expressions were enough to express everyone's shock. Spiritual plants can also transform? This subverted their understanding of spiritual plant. Blue Feather smiled slightly. "Don't be surprised. I can even tell you that there may be other creatures in addition to spiritual plants. But that's too far away. If one day you grow up to be real strong and have the opportunity to go to the capital, maybe you will know." As he spoke, the Blue Feather tapped the air and an image appeared. In the image, it was a land covered in spirit plants, and a withered, leafless tree appeared. However, that tree actually had eyes, a nose, and a mouth. So, the little treeman in the deep-sea jungle in the Level 2 fishery was actually a spiritual plant? So was he a sea monster or something else? The image disappeared, and Blue Feather continued, "Remember this tree. You will have a mission, and that is to kill it." Han Fei's face slightly changed. Kill the tree? He remembered the little treeman in the Level 2 fishery. How could he kill it so casually? The last time he saw the little treant, although he hadn't become a hanging fisher yet, the sacrificing punch didn't work. The tiny treant seemed to have no intention of becoming enemies with humans, but that did not hinder its strength. The withered tree looked much older than the tiny treant. How could it be killed so easily? Blue Feather said, "A few days ago, something happened on the Earth Fire platform in the 10,000 Demon Valley. In 3 days at most, the seal will be opened. All of you must stay here and cannot leave. As soon as the seal is loosened, you can enter immediately. There are 2 purposes for this trip. First, it is mysterious. No one has entered it for a long time, so danger and opportunity coexist. The opportunity for you to become a powerhouse lies within. Second, find that tree and kill it. Yes. We will live up to King Feather's expectations." Someone shouted, feeling that it was their honor to enter such a secret realm. Besides, opportunities never fell from the sky. They had to be fought for. Ordinary people didn't even have a chance to fight for it. But now they had one. Blue Feather nodded in satisfaction. "Okay. There are 2 other points that you must remember. First, this secret realm is very weird. No matter how strong you are, your realm will be suppressed to the demonization realm, which is the realm of human hanging fishers. Everyone can only be at the peak stage of the demonization realm. So, this is the time to test your foundation. Second, there is also a passage on the human side. I'm afraid there will also be young heavenly talents entering, and fighting is inevitable. Remember, don't fight with humans unless you have to. If there were no surprises, the humans would have the exact opposite goal from ours. They would try to save the tree. So, save your trump card for the last time." Han Fei couldn't be more shocked. He didn't even need his intuition to tell him that this matter definitely involved some sort of secret. The sea demons wanted to kill it, and the human beings wanted to save it. Was there no secret? However, Han Fei didn't know what the secret was. Since human beings would also come, maybe this was a chance for him, a chance to leave. Blue Feather made it clear that this was a passage. So, what was the other sea behind the passage? Also, would killing that withered tree affect the passageway? Should he close the passage, or continue to open it after killing the dead tree? Han Fei just felt a little tired. The King mysteries of the sea kept popping up one after another. He hadn't solved the problem here yet, hadn't found the boneyard, and didn't know whether his father was dead or alive. Now, not only the sea demons but also the spiritual plant. However, Han Fei was very sure of one thing at this moment: Luo Xiaobai would definitely come. Since it was full of spiritual plants, with Luo Xiaobai's identity as a divine manipulator, it was impossible for her not to come. Fighting in such a place, the existence of a manipulator would be superior to everyone else. Han Fei smiled secretly. Luo Xiaobai came just in time. At that time, he could go back to convey the news through Luo Xiaobai. Otherwise, if his life tablet was broken, they would probably be anxious. When everyone was digesting this secret, suddenly, Han Fei heard a voice transmission falling into his mind, and he immediately glanced at Qixue Huan. Qixue Huan glanced at him imperceptibly. "Our agreement still stands. First of all, whether you can complete this task or not, you've done it. In the secret realm, find a way to find a golden fruit and bring it back." Han Fei frowned slightly and responded, "Do you have a specific appearance?" Qixue Huan replied, "No. However, that golden fruit should be guarded by a powerful tree demon. This is your main task." Han Fei thought for a while. "What if I can't get it back?" Qixue Huan said, "I said, whether you can complete it or not, you've done it." Han Fei sneered in his heart. Qixue Huan said so, which meant that he would definitely not do this alone. Although he said it nicely, if someone found out that he had pocketed the fruit or given it to a human or something, the moment he came out, he would probably die. Han Fei also nodded imperceptibly. "Okay." When everyone was digesting this information, Blue Feather said, "In the next few days, I will arrange the frontline battlefield to launch a war against human beings, forcing most of the human heavenly talents to be unable to escape. However, you need to pay attention. You should have heard of the manipulators among human beings. They can control spiritual plants by nature, which is a very terrifying existence. You need to be very careful. In addition, 21 Sea Demon Realm powerhouses behind me will go in at the same time as you. All of them are at the peak level of the Sea Demon Realm. Although their realms will be suppressed, they have extremely rich combat experience. When the time comes, they will lead you there." At this moment, Han Fei showed a dazed look. He was a newly awakened sea demon, so he shouldn't know about the 5 major professions, so he pretended to be stupid. Yuji said to him via voice transmission, there are 5 major professions among human beings. Manipulators can control spiritual plants and have strange attack method. In places where spiritual plants are abundant, they can occupy an absolute advantage. So, this is why we try not to fight head-on with human beings. Han Fei responded, I see. Han Fei thought, I know it better than you. I know more about manipulators than all of you. However, what made Han Fei in a bad mood was that for this secret realm, the sea demons actually launched a war against human beings? How many people would die on this battlefield? Han Fei only hoped that some strong masters could take action and change the situation of human beings. As for the 21 sea demon realm powerhouses that Bluefeather said, that is, peak-level hidden fishers, Han Fei didn't take them seriously at all. Once their strength was suppressed to the peak level of the demonic transformation realm, how different would they be from ordinary peak-level demonic transformation realm powerhouses? No matter how strong these people were, they were just strong masters from the barren land. Han Fei didn't think that they could still be so strong after their strength fell to the peak level of the demon transformation realm. On the contrary, Han Fei confidently believed that he was the strongest among these people. At this moment, Han Fei was tempted. Should I trap and kill all these people? And then return to the Scattered Stars Island from the human side? The 3rd chapter. Asking for votes. Tomorrow, end of this chapter. Chapter 778. After Blue Feather and the others left, one of the 8 wings of Blue Feather was named Hai Shinlan. She was a female half-mermaid. After Blue Feather left, she said, let's split into groups. In the next 3 days, everybody was waiting for the so-called seal to be loosened. Nobody dared to leave. Some didn't bring all their belongings, and some wanted to buy some spiritual fruits, but they had to be bought by someone. According to their level and strength, Han Fei and Yu Ji were divided into the same group. It was quite reasonable. After all, they were all brought up by the 8 wings of Blue Feather. Of course, it was also because Yu Ji brought Han Fei back, so Yu Ji wanted to keep an eye on Han Fei. There were 10 people in this group. Apart from Han Fei and Yu Ji, there was also a famous heavenly talent named Yu Ying. Han Fei was rather familiar with the name. He thought for a long time and finally remembered that she was the owner of one of the 4 refining shops that he robbed a few days ago. Because he split his soul out, he didn't remember who she was. At this moment, Han Fei remembered that her family's shop was used for refining ultra-quality demonic weapons. But even the divine artifact refining platform was stolen by him. Han Fei was amused when he thought that. He thought to himself, your belongings are only a few meters away from you. Are you going to bite me? Of course, Han Fei didn't underestimate Yu Ying. Even someone as talented as Yuji, who had opened a refining shop, only had a refining divine platform for high-quality demonic weapons. Yu Ying had a refining divine platform with an ultra-quality demonic weapon, which couldn't be stolen by anybody. As for the captain of Han Fei's team, his name was Yu Hun. It was said that he had returned from the front line and was at the peak of the sea demon realm. He was wearing a silver mask that covered half of his face and seemed rather mysterious. Yu Hun was telling a story to them telepathically, little guys, you've never seen the real battlefield in the front line. It was truly a battle that caused huge waves to surge to the heavens and a baleful aura to fill the seas. Once, I led a team to raid the Scattered Stars Island where human beings gathered. What was it called again? Oh, a place called Hell Beach. I brought 500 people with me. Guess how many of them survived? Immediately, the heavenly talents who hadn't been to the battlefield asked curiously, how many? Yu Hun chuckled. 17 came back. The rest were all killed. Everyone, including Yuji, took a deep breath, and Han Fei also took a deep breath. Yu Hun smiled and said, however, that battle was also a remarkable achievement. Our sneak attack succeeded. We wiped out a large team on the beach and killed a human hidden fisher. Han Fei's pupils constricted. A battalion? Damn it! Han Fei was rather cold. He looked at Yu Han as if he were looking at a dead fish. If I don't kill you in the mystic realm, I won't be surnamed Han. Yu Han was still bragging. Do you know? Human beings like to use high-quality pearls. But he had to go to the Sea of Pearls to collect high-quality pearls. About 8 years ago, a full-scale war broke out between humans and sirens. Lord Yu Hanjia of the 8 Wings of Blue Feather led us straight to the Sea of Pearls and engaged in a great battle with the humans. TSK, that battle was so bloody that the seawater was dyed red, as if the blood-sucking sesame shrimps had passed through. The scene was too horrible to look at. Someone asked, what happened next? Who won? Yu Han said with mixed feelings, it's hard to say who won. All in all, both parties suffered heavy casualties. More than 3,000 human beings were killed in that battle. Yu Han didn't seem interested in the question. He pointed at the mask on his face and said, do you know how I got this mask? Everybody shook their heads. Yu Han chuckled and took off the silver mask. Han Fei could only see that half of his face looked like a skeleton. It seemed to have been burnt by fire and was full of wrinkles and burn marks. Before everybody exclaimed in amazement, Yu Han put on the mask and chuckled. I was slapped by a human law enforcer. A law enforcer is equal to the 8 Wings of Blue Feather. I was almost killed at that time, but the man later. He was killed by your teacher, Lord Yu Beichen and Lord Chishuahuan. At that moment, in the blink of an eye, I almost lost my life. Han Fei looked more and more indifferent. Human beings were fighting a bloody battle too. You're telling a story in front of a human being? Yuing glanced at Han Fei. Yu Fei, you don't look well. Han Fei was briefly stunned. Then he shook his head. I'm recalling what happened. Yu Han chuckled. Don't panic. I still have a story. Let me continue. Before he could finish speaking, everyone's buttocks suddenly trembled. Everybody calmed themselves, only to see that a person suddenly descended from the sky. Who else could it be but Blue Feather? Blue Feather roared, attention, everybody. The treasure trove is about to be opened. Get ready to enter. As soon as Blue Feather said that, the earth-fire platform began to tremble violently. In the center of the earth-fire platform, 6 curved stones suddenly opened outwards, revealing a pitch-black hole. Dense spiritual energy continuously gushed out from the entrance of the cave, causing everyone to feel nervous and expectant at the same time. Usually, such places with intense spiritual energy were either sacred places for cultivation or extremely dangerous. Enter. After Blue Feather gave the order, all the captains at the peak of the Sea Demon realm roared, enter. Follow me. On the Scattered Stars Island. In an underground cave in the Transverse Mountain, Shueishenqi showed up in person. In front of Shueishenqi was a team of more than 100 people. Luo Xiaobai and Lu Renquang were among them. Luo Xiaobai stood at the front of the team. As a divine manipulator, she couldn't hide her identity from the leadership of the Scattered Stars Island. So, she led a team of people alone. In this team, there were 3 manipulators, 2 armorists, 2 spirit gatherers, 1 soul warrior, and 1 hunter. Among them, Lu Renquang was one of the armorists. Faced with an ocean of spiritual plants, Luo Xiaobai and Lu Renquang would be much stronger. At this moment, Lu Renquang remarked, if Han Fei were still here, he would have definitely come after hearing that there are so many treasures in this treasure trove. Lu Renquang was no longer what he was a few months ago. As a member of the Thug Academy, he knew that Han Fei's life tablet was broken. Lu Renquang blamed himself. Why didn't he go out with Han Fei? Because of that, Zhang Xuanyu almost fell out with him. He couldn't even eat now. Up to now, this matter still hadn't been resolved. After hearing about the spiritual plant channel, the first person he thought of was Han Fei. Luo Xiaobai nodded indifferently, and then her eyes became slightly blank. He likes this kind of place best. Lu Renquang scratched his head. I hope nothing happens to Zhang Xuanyu outside. The Scattered Stars Island has already started a war with the sea demons. This time, it's only the two of us. Luo Xiaobai nodded. I'm here. At this moment, in the cave, a blue spring suddenly began to roll. Shueshenqi shouted, Go in. No matter what, you must cherish your life. Swish, swish, swish. Han Fei's eyes were dazzled. Almost in an instant, his eyes turned green. Then, as if he had drunk Sprite, his heart was chilled and his heart soared. The concentration of spiritual energy here was at least 5 times higher than that of the outside world, making everyone feel as if they had suddenly entered the ice and snow of the Arctic from a hot desert. The moment he entered here, Han Fei suddenly felt that the demon purification pot in his mind trembled. The demon purification pot moved? Han Fei knew that this secret realm was not simple. Since it could make the demon purification pot move, there must be something special here. When everyone calmed down, they found that the green here was not pure. To be exact, there were all kinds of colors. Green was like the background color, the most eye-catching color. Under Han Fei's feet, there were large yellow and pink coral bushes, and seaweed was everywhere in every crevice. In their field of vision, countless rattan algae hundreds of meters long were swaying like a forest that had been cut down. Above them, a large number of algae leaves floated quietly in the water, drifting tens of meters away. Between the vines and algae, one would occasionally see a large tree that looked like it was covered in moss. Every leaf was like a piece of seaweed. The smallest seemed to be more than 10 meters long. This was a real seaweed forest, denser than the deep-sea jungle that Han Fei had seen. There were schools of light yellow fish swimming among the seaweeds. There were round yellow-green crabs crawling on the rocks and mud. There were long-tailed fish with blue and black stripes fleeing in panic into the coral clumps full of white sea urchins. There were white shrimps as thin as skeletons floating away like ghosts. There were transparent sea hares attached to the giant seaweeds and disappeared in a flash. There were also colorful lights flashing like marquee lights, which all went out in an instant. Han Fei murmured to himself, What a dreamy undersea forest! Before Han Fei had time to marvel at the natural growth of the creatures here, he heard the captains of the teams immediately calling their teams. Someone shouted, The channel is too big. Teams disperse. If you encounter any danger, release the sea demon scream. Han Fei frowned and looked at Yuji. What is the sea demon scream? Yuji glanced at Han Fei. That's a unique way of pronunciation for half-mermaids and half-mermaids. In a very urgent situation, they will burst out with the sea demon scream. Within 300 kilometers, they can quickly send a message for help. You'd better not pray that you will hear such a sound, which means that someone is dying. Han Fei secretly chuckled. I'm praying and looking forward to it. Thankfully, the teams split up, or I wouldn't have a chance to kill you. The teams had split up and swam in the direction that they had chosen. Yuhun roared, Follow me! Including Yuhun, the 11 of them simply charged at the jungle of giant algae, and the regular fish scattered. After swimming for 20 kilometers, they didn't find anything unusual. There were still giant algae and occasional trees around. Han Fei had been looking around. Although he saw a lot of creatures, they weren't strong and didn't attack. How can there be no powerful creatures in such a place with such intense spiritual energy? One of the half-mermaids descended to the bottom of the ocean and pressed one hand on the seabed, as if he were sensing something carefully. Pooh! All of a sudden, before anyone could react, 3 sharp thorns that looked like steel thorns suddenly extended from the ground and pierced through the half-mermaid heavenly talent. The moment the thorns emerged, thousands of vines as thick as thumbs tied up the half-mermaid. Han Fei was quite shocked too. He gasped at the information in his eyes. 100-year tree demon? First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 779. Information about the spike popped up in Han Fei's eyes. Name 100-year tree demon introduction. This is an intelligent spiritual plant that grew from the seed of an ancient demon tree. It has an inherited battle technique, the 100-year demon spike, which is very destructive and can pierce through ultra-quality demonic weapons. It can control its roots and vines to travel underground. Level 49 quality, exotic spiritual energy 7, 705 level C demon, battle technique, 100-year demon spike, absorbable. Note, this spiritual plant has no demonic heritage. It's all in the meridian opening stage and has no barrier. When Han Fei saw the information, he subconsciously raised his head and looked at the tree 1,000 meters away, only to be shocked. Is this a living spirit plant? It has no demonic heritage or companion spirit, but it has an inherited battle technique. It's directly in the meridian opening stage. Han Fei's eyes flashed. What did it mean? As long as the demonic plants could keep growing, they could keep growing stronger. Compared with the cultivation methods of humans and sea demons, there was no difference between them. However, although such intelligent creatures didn't have demonic heritage, they had qualities, which were the same as contractual spiritual beasts and naturally endowed spiritual beasts. If that was the case, then what kind of living beings did they belong to? Was it possible for human beings to subdue a spiritual plant as a contractual creature? Han Fei thought of a lot of questions, but he didn't have any answers yet. After all, there were so many people in the team. At this moment, almost instantly, Yu Hun, Yu Ying, Yu Ji and the rest of them took action and tore apart the vines, rescuing the half-mermaid. However, when they rescued the man, they found that one of the 3 thorns had pierced through the middle of his ribs, and his internal organs had been pierced. The hole was even thicker than Han Fei's thigh. Apart from that, the 100-year demon spike was also poisoned. At this moment, the half-mermaid was already turning blue. He opened his mouth, and his eyes began to lose focus. He was a heavenly talent. Little did he expect that he would die for nothing just because he wanted to show off and explore the environment with a secret technique. Yu Hun said with an awful expression, "Everybody, don't go to the seabed. It's dangerous underground. Based on what we know from the 10,000 Demon Valley, this should have been done by the 100-year tree demon. If I'm not wrong, it should be that tree in front." Except for Han Fei, the others were too furious to control themselves when they saw the half-mermaid die. What the F***ck was this? They had only walked for a little more than 20 kilometers and someone had already died? While everyone was angry, they were also secretly vigilant. In this seemingly gorgeous ocean forest, there was actually a hidden danger, and they could not be careless anymore. Yu Hun roared, "Everybody, put on your battle suits and take out your weapons. Prepare for battle." As they spoke, the guy who had been stabbed to death ran out of the void. His face was filled with astonishment, and he was completely dumbfounded. He thought to himself, "I just came in, and I already died once? If there was a second time, wouldn't he be dead for sure?" Yu Ji glanced at Han Fei's reaction and was greatly disappointed. From the beginning to the end, Han Fei's reaction was as indifferent as ever. However, it made sense. Han Fei didn't know much about the 10,000 Demon Valley and didn't have a sense of belonging. This guy pretended to be dumb the first time they met, but he was too cold after that, which made Yu Ji very unhappy. Yu Ying looked at Yu Ji and then at Han Fei. There was no telling what was on her mind. Following Yu Hun's command, everybody swam to the tree. This tree was more than 200 meters tall, and it could be said to be so long that it could reach the sky. However, Han Fei didn't find any information about the tree when he saw it. Han Fei realized that it wasn't a 100-year tree demon. Immediately, Han Fei released his senses and scanned the area. The others, including Yu Hun, had already begun to attack the tree. They believed that the tree must be a 100-year tree demon. Only a tree of such a size could kill a half-mermaid heavenly talent in one attack. As dozens of cold lights pierced through, Han Fei saw that half of the tree was blown up. However, different from everybody's expectation, the tree didn't react at all. Instead, a lot of dark green liquid flowed out of the broken trunk. The liquid quickly dispersed in the water. Immediately, Han Fei frowned and had a bad feeling. Seeing that the bombardment didn't work and that Han Fei didn't attack, Yu Ji thought for a while and roared, "Watch out for poison." Yu Hun roared too, "Retreat." As he spoke, Yu Hun waved his hand and a great wave surged out, as if he were trying to push the liquid away. However, during the bombardment just now, some of the shattered waves had already hit everyone. Han Fei didn't sense any reaction from the Heaven Spirit detoxifying insect, so he was sure that it wasn't poison. After retreating hundreds of meters, everybody floated in midair and looked at the half-rotten tree quietly, waiting to see what would happen. Han Fei's senses, on the other hand, were still scanning the tree. The 100-year tree demon was nearby. If the tree wasn't a 100-year tree demon, it must be a small tree. But there were dozens of small trees nearby. They varied from 5 meters to 10 meters, and they all looked the same. Oh wait. Han Fei's pupils suddenly constricted. He saw a small tree that was only 3 meters tall. The small tree didn't have many leaves, but it did have a lot of branches. Han Fei felt that it was rather weird. This was a place with abundant spiritual energy. The leaves of other plants should have been long. However, this tree only had one green spot, which didn't fit the environment. All of a sudden, Han Fei had a strong sense of crisis, and he moved 3 meters away. In the next second, the leaves on the algae behind them were straightened and swept like giant swords. Because of Han Fei's sudden movement, the others were also alarmed. In any case, it wouldn't be wrong to move along with him. As it turned out, because of Han Fei's movement, everybody narrowly avoided the attack of the flying swords and giant leaves. Instantly, hundreds of blades of grass broke away from the algae and swept at Han Fei and the others like swords. Yu Hun roared, "They can't do much damage. Don't panic." However, while the vines and blades weren't strong, there were many of them. Would you be afraid of it if it covered the sky and covered the earth? At the very least, the heavenly talents who hadn't been through many battles would panic when they were faced with such overwhelming attack. Some of them forgot their previous experience and approached the seabed to avoid the vines and the blades. Poochie! Almost 10 sharp thorns suddenly emerged more than 10 meters tall and pierced at the man. In the chaos, although he was alert and avoided most of the thorns, the vines around him locked his feet. However, the surrounding vines wrapped around his feet and pinned him down. 2 sharp thorns directly pierced through his feet. "Yu Lu!" Someone roared and tried to rescue him. But there were too many vines and it was too slow. Yu Lu, who was pierced, wasn't dead. Although the 100-year demonic thorns could penetrate ultra-quality battlesuits, it wasn't easy to kill someone through a battlesuit. However, Yu Lu, who was suddenly wounded, didn't unleash all his strength to break free. Instead, he summoned his companion spirit. Seeing that, Han Fei knew that the guy was doomed and had to use the immortal seal. It was true that the guy was a heavenly talent, but he was a level 49 exotic 100-year tree demon anyway. Why would he be scared of him? As he expected, the guy summoned his companion spirit, and another row of 100-year demonic thorns popped up. This time, it pierced him solidly, leaving 5 or 6 holes on his body. Yu Hun roared, "Don't go down there! Get back here!" Yu Lu walked out of the void, equally horrified. He had used up his life just like that? Han Fei was waving his harpoon so vigorously that the grasses and vines were cut into pieces. Even though some of the vines tried to pull him, they couldn't move him at all under Han Fei's terrifying strength. Seeing that Yu Ji, Yu Ying and the others were fighting, Han Fei had a guess that the uncle's juice could affect the attacks of other plants. However, Han Fei wouldn't tell them that. He glanced at the tree casually, knowing that the 100-year tree demon couldn't hide for long. Han Fei's lips curled, and an idea occurred to him. The 100-year tree demon had already killed 2 people, which was a great help to him. However, it probably wouldn't be able to kill any more people. Since it would be discovered sooner or later, he might as well discover it himself in order to win the team's trust. Right when everybody was fighting hard, Han Fei suddenly went on a rampage and launched a streak of light with his harpoon, shattering all the vines and leaves along the way. Seeing Han Fei's sudden outburst and the direction of his outburst, everybody immediately noticed the tree. Yuhun roared, "Damn it! I'm going to kill you today." However, out of everybody's expectation, the 100-year tree demon suddenly grew taller, and a lot of roots emerged from its roots. It simply ran away. He didn't know if it was because there were too many roots, but this thing ran very fast. In any case, it was much faster than a crab that could only move horizontally. Han Fei was stunned for a moment. Is that even possible? You're a tree. How can you run? How can you run faster than a crab? However, it was destined that it couldn't get away. Han Fei's streak of light was too fast. Han Fei had to lower his altitude halfway, and a couple of sharp thorns rose to the sky. However, Han Fei had seen it coming. He turned in the seawater and dodged the thorns easily, before he hit the 100-year tree demon. The 100-year tree demon was pierced through by Han Fei, and it was flung away. Then Yuhun, Yuji, Yuing, and everybody else arrived. The overwhelming shadows of the harpoon riddled the 100-year tree demon with holes. The infuriated half-mermaids were venting their fury crazily, and Han Fei had nothing to do with them anymore. So, Han Fei simply stopped and watched the scene in silence. Yuing floated close. How did you discover it? Second update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 780. The 100-year tree demon was riddled with holes. Yuhun uprooted it and crushed it with demonic chi. It couldn't have survived at all. At this moment, everybody looked at Han Fei curiously. Why did he pick this one out of so many trees? Han Fei remained calm. Look for differences when everything is the same. That's the basic rule for creatures to survive in the ocean. Everybody. Many people here weren't evolved from fish at all. Many of them were actually descendants of half-mermaids and half-mermaid. Some of them had evolved, but it had been so long that they forgot their vigilance before they were awakened. Yuji frowned and said, I've noticed that tree before. It's basically the same. It has fewer leaves, but… All of a sudden, Yuji gasped. I should have suspected it. Yuhun said solemnly, Everybody, pay attention. We've just entered this place. As a result, you've all seen it for yourselves. A mere 100-year tree demon caused the death of 2 of our geniuses. It's not hard to imagine how terrifying the demonic plants are. I can also tell you clearly that there are 1,000-year tree demons and even 10,000-year tree demons in this mysterious channel. This time, everybody was shocked, including Han Fei. A 100-year tree demon was already so tricky to deal with. What about the 1,000-year tree demons? What about the 10,000-year tree demons? Demonic plants? Han Fei deeply remembered this highly intelligent plant creature. They were in the ocean forest, which meant that they were in their own backyard. Their attacks were almost impossible to defend against. They were truly worth paying attention to. However, the more dangerous this passageway mystic realm was, the greater the secret behind it. Han Fei even wondered if the little treant in the deep-sea jungle in the level 2 fishery was guarding a channel too. However, on second thought, that might not be right. If it was really guarding a channel, it would have been broken through by an expert a long time ago, and he wouldn't have run into it. Instead of thinking about it, the algae and vines around gradually calmed down and stopped attacking, as if they had lost their commander. Yuing said warily, The 100-year tree demon can control the spiritual plants around. We need to be careful. Master Yuhun, are the 1,000-year tree demons and the 10,000-year tree demons stronger than the 100-year tree demons? Yuhun nodded and then shook his head. No, the 100-year tree demons, the 1,000-year tree demons, and the 10,000-year tree demons will all be suppressed to level 49 in this place. Ah! Someone asked in surprise, why? Aren't they born and raised here? Yuhun said casually, that's what the files from 30 years ago said. Their strength is also suppressed by this space, just like us. However, unlike us, they were born to live in this world and seem to be able to fuse with it. Therefore, they are more dangerous than we thought. Someone asked, "Doesn't that mean their strength is the same?" Yuhan looked at the man as if he were an idiot. Can 100 years, 1,000 years, or 10,000 years be the same? Otherwise, why would the seniors differentiate them? It was said that the 1,000-year tree demons were more mysterious and aggressive than the 100-year tree demons. Their 1,000-year demon spikes are comparable to semi-divine weapons. Hiss! Everybody was appalled. Wasn't it too horrifying that they were comparable to semi-divine weapons? Someone asked, then, if we kill the 1,000-year tree demon and loot its demon spikes, can't we use them as semi-divine weapons? Even Han Fei was considering the same question, although he was one step ahead of everybody else. Han Fei was considering that the 1,000-year tree demon's demon spikes were already comparable to semi-divine weapons. What about the 10,000-year tree demon's demon spikes? Could they be comparable to real divine weapons? Yuhan slightly shook his head. Not exactly. Do you think you just killed the 100-year tree demon? Everybody was stunned. Didn't we? Yuhan shook his head with a bitter smile. To some extent, we did kill it. However, intelligent creatures like tree demons are special. When they are dying, they will bury their demon spikes and crawl into unknown places. 100 years later, they will grow into a new 100-year tree demon. Huh! Everyone was dumbfounded. Someone exclaimed, if that's the case, then wouldn't creatures like tree demons be immortal and indestructible? Yuhan chuckled. No creature can be indestructible. That's only if the demon spikes can escape, but sometimes they can't. It all depends on their luck. Also, the demon spikes that escaped have lost their intelligence. Even if they grow back into a 100-year tree demon, they won't be the same as before. From a certain point of view, they are equivalent to death. Han Fei was shocked to hear that. In any case, according to Yuhan, creatures like tree demons were extremely horrifying. Being able to reincarnate, under the encirclement of so many people, was already a testament to the uniqueness of this kind of creature. He glanced at everybody else, only to see that everybody was solemn. In another corner, a great battle was taking place. However, this battle was far easier than the one Han Fei and the others fought. 3 manipulators were trying their best to control the crazy spiritual plants around them. Among them, Luo Xiaobai's body was tense and her eyes closed. She was fighting a battle of spirit seizing. Lu Renquang was clearing the spiritual plants nearby crazily, and the other soul warriors, armorists, and hunters surrounded Luo Xiaobai to protect her. After about half an hour, Luo Xiaobai's face was slightly pale. She suddenly opened her eyes and said casually, "We won." Lu Renquang was overjoyed. Is the 100-year tree demon ours? Hardly had Lu Renquang said that when a small tree ran out of a bunch of trees, its roots running on the ground. However, the 100-year tree demon could no longer attack anybody. It had become a member of Luo Xiaobai's team. Luo Xiaobai said softly, from its spiritual senses, I learned that the 1,000-year tree demon is much stronger than it and not easy to control it. It doesn't know or have seen a 10,000-year tree demon before. However, there's good news. There are a lot of heavenly materials and earthly treasures here. In a place further away, a young girl holding a flute appeared. Her silhouette turned illusory, and her slender hand grabbed a 100-year demon spike. With a thought, a weird half-foot-long sword drew a terrifying net of swords and minced a 100-year tree demon into pieces. In the end, she held a 3-foot-long conical thorn in her hand. At this moment, the corners of her mouth curled up slightly, revealing an indescribable smile. Above the woman, the team of 9 people was watching this scene in shock. If Han Fei were here, he would have recognized her. She was Chao Jiaran, Chao Qiu's sister and Chao Tian's sister. On the other hand, Han Fei's team had already moved on. After the first lesson, the safety factor of their operation had increased a lot. At this moment, Yuing showed her toughness. Hundreds of shadows appeared at the bottom of the sea, and the 100-year demonic thorns were piercing crazily, but none of them hit her. This woman, on the other hand, shot out shadow spears one after another. A small tree was frozen by more than 30 shadow spears and couldn't move at all. Han Fei watched the scene quietly. He barely took action and had been paying attention to other people. After all, he had made the greatest contribution, and he could spare some of his energy to observe the people he wanted to trap and kill. Among them, Yu Ying was the one that Han Fei valued the most, even more than Yu Ji. It was because the woman's shadow carried a sealing effect. Also, the effect of her shadow was similar to Xia Xiaochan's shadow kill technique. 3 hours passed. Han Fei didn't hear a single sea demon scream. It meant that either there were no other teams nearby, or the casualties were acceptable for each team, and it wasn't worth a sea demon scream. At this moment, Yu Hun was picking a spiritual fruit from a nest of giant anemones that were full of tentacles. The spiritual fruit was more effective than any spiritual fruit that Han Fei had ever seen. Information popped up in his eyes. Name: sunflower fruit. Introduction: an exotic spiritual fruit that grows in the Sea of Dahlias. It can improve one's spiritual power. Level: demon level. Quality: ultra quality, spiritual energy greater than 356,000 points. Effect: if it's eaten directly, it will increase a lot of spiritual energy and 10% of one's spiritual power. It doesn't work on creatures above the hidden fisher level. After eating it, one can't improve one's spiritual power with other spiritual fruits of the same kind for 49 days. After reading the information of this spiritual fruit, Han Fei secretly gasped. Not only did it contain a lot of spiritual energy, but it could also directly increase one's spiritual power by 10%. Although it was within the range of one's potential, it was extremely difficult to train one's spiritual power. Could a single sunflower fruit save him so much time in cultivation? Han Fei's spiritual power had only increased from 1,912 points to 2,164 points after the ancient 72-floor demon realm. But now it was only as effective as this spiritual fruit? Are you kidding me? In addition to Han Fei, Yu Ji was also shocked. Is this a sunflower fruit? Yu Hun nodded. It's indeed a sunflower fruit. I didn't expect that such a rare spiritual fruit could be found so easily. As expected of the ocean forest that nobody has been interested in for years. All of a sudden, Yu Hun roared, "Attention, everybody! Let's search the place carefully. The heavenly materials and earthly treasures belong to whoever finds them first. This sunflower fruit was found by Yu Ying, so it belongs to him." Instantly, Han Fei's face was hideous. I found it a long time ago. If I hadn't wanted to keep a low profile, I would have taken it first. Damn it. For the sake of the heavenly materials and earthly treasures, I can't keep a low profile anymore. Third. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 781. Just like a tropical rainforest, the algae forest had the same levels: the crown, the undergrowth, and the forest floor. The algae grew very long, and many of its leaves were golden brown. At this moment, the only thing missing was sunlight. Otherwise, this place would have been bathed in a golden light. Han Fei raised his head more than once, wondering if there was a sea here. Of course there was. However, in his perception, there were a lot of transparent sea rabbits up there. Different from regular sea rabbits, the transparent sea rabbits were more like jellyfish. They didn't look like the sea slugs that Han Fei knew, which had transparent openings like the petals of a carnivorous flower. They looked mysterious and dangerous. Above them was an area of strange dark seaweed. It was like a huge dome, covering everyone's head so tightly that no light could pass through. That was where Han Fei's perception ended. Seeing Han Fei's face, Yu Hun explained, "This is a channel that connects two areas after all. Its powerful sealing power is beyond the imagination of mortals." Han Fei slightly nodded and swam in the algae forest with everybody else. At this moment, they had swum more than 500 kilometers away from where they just came in. Han Fei didn't know how big this place was. However, in his perception, he saw a weird forest of bright green leaves 40 kilometers to his left. The algae there had been fewer, replaced by a lot of narrow, long seaweeds with short leaves. Those grasses were attached to the trees like creepers. After a quick glance, Han Fei saw 200-year tree demons. Wait, there are 3 of them. Han Fei frowned and thought of something. Do you smell something? Han Fei wasn't making it up. He did sense a vague change in the smell of the seawater. As an excellent chef, Han Fei's sense of smell was more complicated than that of those who ate raw seafood. Yu Ji glanced at him. Smell? I don't see anything. Ewing asked, What did you find? Yu Hun waved his hand and asked everybody to stop. Where is it? Han Fei looked to the right. The smell is coming from that direction. Yu Hun bared his teeth and chuckled. Let's go and take a look. It's hard to tell the direction because of the algae. Since something is wrong, let's go there. Yuji glanced at him. You have a good sense of smell. Han Fei said casually, That's his talent. Yuji and the others were speechless. Do you mean that our talent is not good? My sense of smell isn't as good as yours. However, as soon as they turned around and swam over, Han Fei saw that the 300-year tree demons dispersed. Their leaves began to grow longer. Even the tree trunk blended into the long grass and changed their appearance. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. He wondered if Yu Hun sensed anything. It was different from him, who was equivalent to the demonization realm. His mental strength was strong because it was what he had always been. Yu Hun, on the other hand, couldn't have sensed it when his strength was suppressed. Han Fei's lips curled up a little. Perhaps this time, he could kill some people. If Han Fei wanted to get rid of this team, he had to find a way to kill them. He didn't care about the lives of these people at all. He even believed that in this sea area, the half-mermaids couldn't beat the manipulators. They were going to die sooner or later anyway, so it was the same to kill them now. However, after swimming for less than 1,000 meters, Han Fei suddenly saw a fluorescent shield that enshrouded a red tree in the middle of the green vines. On the red tree there was a golden fruit. Han Fei was immediately intrigued. A golden fruit? Is this the golden fruit that Qixue Huan mentioned? Han Fei swam forward calmly, pretending that he didn't know what was going on. They were very fast. When they were about 20 kilometers away, Yu Hun suddenly put on an expression of delight. Something's different up ahead. There's a spiritual plant treasure. Everybody was overjoyed to hear that and charged forward. There were 11 of them in total. Everybody had a chance. They were all heavenly talents and didn't think that they would lose to Yu Fei and Yu Ji. After another 10 kilometers, Yu Ji, Yu Ying, and the other 2 seemed to have sensed it. They were all overjoyed. Some of them didn't sense it until they were about 8 kilometers away. Han Fei secretly sneered. As it turned out, the so-called heavenly talents weren't that great. However, it did make sense. There couldn't be hundreds of them who were all very strong. A perception range of more than 5,000 meters was already very rare for a demon transformation realm expert. Even among the heavenly talents on the Scattered Stars Island, few of them had a perception range of 5,000 meters. He was almost certain that there couldn't be more than 5 people like him. Or rather, none at all. Yu Hun roared, although it's a rare treasure, we must be careful and not be reckless. Standing in the place that was full of vines, they weren't in a hurry to attack. Someone said, There are no more algae. Have we left the algae forest? Yu Hun frowned and said, I've never seen such a place in your files. These algae don't seem threatening at all. Yu Ji exclaimed, Huh? Do you feel that your head is clearer now? Ewing nodded. Yes, and it does smell. The smell can crawl into your body, but it's not poisonous. Of course, Han Fei noticed that, but he was slightly surprised. Wasn't it mint? Is it sea peppermint? The leaves on the long vines looked like mint leaves, but they seemed different. They were chubby and looked like succulents. Information popped up in his eyes. Name: Purple Vine Thyme. Introduction. This is a rare thyme leaf. It contains thick mucus and has a spicy taste. Staying in such an environment for a long time can help clear one's head, but it's easy to be hooked into illusions. Level 40 Quality: Rare spiritual energy greater than 3,668 points. Effect: this herb can help clear one's head. Long-term consumption can help improve one's spiritual power. Collectible thyme leaf. Absorbable, an illusion? Immediately, Han Fei secretly controlled the desolate god body to block his acupoints from automatically absorbing spiritual energy. At the same time, Han Fei held his breath. Yuji had been paying attention to Han Fei the most and felt that he wasn't simple. She noticed that Han Fei held his breath and frowned. Isn't it good to clear one's head? Why is he holding his breath? She guessed that Han Fei must have his reasons for doing that. Therefore, she held her breath as well. The others, including Yuhun, didn't care. Their eyes all fell on the small red tree that was wrapped in seals. The golden fruit looked very tempting. However, Yuhun held back his urge and said, "All heavenly materials and treasures are usually guarded by creatures. Don't be hasty. Let's see if there are any 100-year tree demons." Han Fei didn't plan to approach the red tree at all, so no information appeared in his eyes. He felt that since it was so easy for him to encounter this golden fruit, he should be able to find it. In that case, it would not be difficult to meet him again. Moreover, if it was really the one that Qixue Huan wanted, when others snatched it, they would naturally bring it back. Otherwise, even if he snatched it, he wouldn't be able to eat it. How uncomfortable would that be? However, he was very clear that there were 300-year tree demons hidden in the grass. Moreover, it was a 100-year tree demon that could transform itself on its own. Previously, everyone had been deceived by a phenomenon. The 100-year tree demon's disguise would definitely be different from the current environment. However, it turned out that this was not the case. He could also disguise himself. Han Fei didn't think that the place where 300-year tree demons lived in peace could be so simple. Yuhun said, "Take out your amulets and battle suits, and prepare yourselves in your best state. Everybody go down together. Don't separate." Han Fei only wore an ultra-quality battle suit and an ultra-quality harpoon. Semi-divine weapons weren't given out. It seemed that they had to make contributions to the 10,000 Demon Valley in order to get them. Also, Han Fei claimed that he had an overlord body. Therefore, Qixue Huan didn't give them out either. Even in the 10,000 Demon Valley, semi-divine weapons weren't easy to get. Because the red tree was in the grass of the time, the 11 of them dived down in a circle. Han Fei was confident that he could resist the 100-year demon's stings when they were out. Someone said, "No 100-year tree demons." Someone said warily, "There must be some sort of danger. We just haven't discovered it yet. Could it be hiding deep below the ground?" Ewing said, "Wait a moment. I'll seal the tree." Hiu! Hiu! A number of shadow spears flew out, encircling the red tree in a circle. In one team, 3 of them had semi-divine weapons, Yuji had a divine weapon, and the other 5 all had ultra-quality demonic weapons and battlesuit. They were slowly moving forward, 2,000 meters away and 50 meters high. Nothing happened. 1,500 meters away and 30 meters high. Nothing happened. 1,000 meters away and 20 meters high. Still nothing happened. When they were 100 meters away, and about 10 meters away from the seabed, they had already landed in the thicket of wisteria thyme. Someone heaved a sigh of relief. As expected, fortunately, there's no movement. Otherwise, the 100-year tree demons would have attacked us at this height. Yuji said, "Be careful. We can't let our guard down." When they were only 100 meters away from the red tree, information popped up in Han Fei's eyes. Name: 1,000-year tree demon. Introduction: a highly intelligent spiritual plant. It grew from the seed of the ancient demon tree. It has an inherited combat skill, 1,000-year demon stings. It can summon multiple demon stings that are very destructive and can pierce through semi-divine weapons. It can control its roots and vines to travel underground. Level 49 Quality Legendary Spiritual Energy 9, 998 Realm Sea Demon Combat Skill 1000-Year Demon Stings. Absorbable. Note: spiritual plant creatures have no demonic veins. They are all in the Meridian Opening Realm and have no barriers. Shoot, 4th update. Asking for votes. That's all for today. Nothing special. Please vote more. End of this chapter. Chapter 782. Han Fei didn't feel good when he read the message. None of them, including him, expected that the red tree was the 1000-Year Tree Demon that Yu Hun mentioned. Han Fei had an idea. The 1000-Year Tree Demon was highly intelligent and knew how to disguise and deceive. Then, Han Fei's first thought was to dodge. Without any hesitation, Han Fei simply performed the Flying Flower Demon Flash and broke away from the team. The moment Han Fei broke away from the team, everybody's heart skipped a beat. However, Yu Hun, Yu Ji, and Yu Ying were the fastest to react. However, the three of them had different reactions. Yu Hun instantly created a weird red barrier for himself and tried to escape. Yu Ying turned into a dozen shadows and appeared in the sky. Yu Ji was the only one who took action. She grabbed the harpoon with both hands, and an enormous water giant was condensed. She wanted to protect the others. Han Fei was dumbfounded when he saw that. You can react fast enough, and you're still protecting the others? Do you know what kind of creature you're dealing with? Pusi. Gotcha. What happened next made Han Fei and Yu Ying's blood freeze. They were both horrified. Hundreds of demonic stings pierced out of the ground. They were all heavenly talents. The moment Han Fei realized what was going on, they had already risen. Two of them were even using the Flying Flower Demon Flash. However, they were still one step too slow. Also, they underestimated the 1000-Year Tree Demon's abilities. As it turned out, the 1000-Year Tree Demon's 1000-year demonic stings weren't limited to attacks from underground anymore. They darted out from the ground, and there was more than one of them. Han Fei, Yu Ying, and Yu Hun were among them. Even though they had run out, a weird red stinger was still extended from their back. Han Fei's body was in a weird posture, and the red stinger was right next to his head. If he had been one step slower, he might not have been able to keep his head. Yu Ying was more relaxed than Han Fei. Her shadow had been pierced, and she had switched to another shadow. Yu Ying was even slightly surprised. What kind of movement technique was Han Fei using? It was actually so ingenious. That reaction speed was simply too terrifying. As a peak-level sea demon expert, Yu Hun shifted his body the moment he left. At the same time, a pair of scissors dashed at the 1000-Year Tree Demon, which was even faster than Han Fei. Unfortunately, except for the three of them, everyone, including Yu Ji, was stabbed. The two fellows who used the Flying Flower Demon Flash in the blink of an eye were also pierced through. The water man formed by Yu Ji couldn't resist the 1000-year demon's sting at all and was pierced in an instant. As for her entire body, she was lifted high into the sky. The reason was because the 1000-year demon's spike had failed to pierce through her divine armor. Among them, only Yu Ji had a divine battlesuit. Therefore, she was the only one who managed to block the attack. However, even so, Yu Ji spat out a mouthful of blood. As for the others, one of them also had a semi-divine golden battlesuit. However, it was useless. The golden battlesuit was also pierced through. However, because that person had used the Flying Flower Demon Flash, he still had time to change direction the moment his armor was pierced. Therefore, the place where he was pierced had changed from his chest to his thigh. Those who didn't run away in time were badly wounded by the messy 100-year demon stings and 1000-year demon stings. Those demon stings didn't finish after one stab, but kept on stabbing. After one stab, the next one arrived. Yu Lu and Yu Xian, who had died once earlier, couldn't be resurrected this time. How could they survive after using their immortal seals? Also, this time was different from the last time. This time, they weren't faced with 100-year tree demon, but 300-year tree demons and 1,000-year tree demon. The tree demons had only one way to attack, which was with stings. They would suddenly attack when the enemy was unprepared. Clang! Yuhan's scissors had already cut through the barrier that the 1,000-year tree demon disguised. However, there was another problem. The 1,000-year tree demon had already crawled into the ground and disappeared. Yuhan roared, "Damn it! It's a 1,000-year tree demon. We've run into a 1,000-year tree demon." It was impossible to catch up with it. Once it landed, who could resist the unpredictable 1,000-year demon stings? Even Han Fei didn't dare to say that he could resist the 1,000-year demon stings. After all, those were demon stings that could pierce semi-divine weapons. The indestructible body could only resist ultra-quality demonic weapons in its strongest state. That was when the enemy wasn't a heavenly talent. If the enemy was a heavenly talent, he wouldn't be able to resist it even with an ultra-quality demonic weapon. However, those people thought that they had run into a 1,000-year tree demon and didn't notice the 100-year tree demon at all. At this moment, all the demon stings had sunk into the ground. 11 people finally began to truly fall. At this moment, there were only 9 left. 5 of them didn't have their immortal seals anymore. Yuhan's heart was chilled by that. What the hell was going on? 2 of the 11 heavenly talents from the 10,000 Demon Valley had died. What should he do if he ran into such a situation again? The 5 of them might be killed at any moment. Yuji suddenly grabbed her harpoon and pointed at Han Fei. "Why did you run away alone?" Everyone looked at Han Fei with unkind eyes. Han Fei was unmoved. "There's no time. I can only tell you with my actions that danger is coming while I'm trying to save my life." Nobody dared to be angry after hearing what Han Fei said. After all, what happened just now happened too fast. Any one of them would have chosen to run away instead of wasting time to talk to other people telepathically. Yuhan said gloomily, "You were the first to discover this place." Han Fei said, "I didn't discover this place. I only smelled it." Yuhan looked rather gloomy. Logically speaking, it wasn't Han Fei's fault. But in terms of attitude, Han Fei had been too cold-blooded since the beginning. Yuhan didn't realize that he was actually as fast as Han Fei when he ran away. Yuji put down the harpoon in her hand. In any case, after these days of observation, the feeling that she cherished Han Fei's talent had completely disappeared. This guy didn't seem to fit in with them at all. Putting down the harpoon, Yuji lowered her head and looked at the seabed. "The 1,000-year tree demon is definitely still here. We should kill him." Yuing instantly sneered. "How? We're different from human beings. We can control some of the creatures, but we can't control the plant." Someone was still in shock. They had died once, and they might really be killed if they went down again. Someone disagreed and found a very suitable excuse. "Our goal is to kill that withered tree, not to fight the 1,000-year tree demon here." Someone thought for a moment. "If there's an opportunity down there," Yuhan roared, "no, let's leave this place." Han Fei secretly sneered. He had been holding his breath the whole time, but he felt that something wasn't right. Where was the illusion? Where was it? Yuhan was the captain, and he had to leave. Without any hesitation, everybody swam toward the forest of algae. However, as soon as the crowd moved, they saw a sky full of red demon spikes piercing through the void. Yuhan and the others roared, "Not good. Let's go." Frowning, Han Fei mumbled, "That's not right. Will the 1,000-year tree demon's stings appear in the void? If that's the case, why did he pretend to be a tree and take root in the bushes?" Han Fei quickly twisted his body and retreated, his brain spinning violently. He tried to block the stings with his harpoon, but it turned out that the stings were fake. In the end, that was not the case at all. The demon spike was fake. Not just Han Fei, but everybody else did too. Yuing roared, "No, they're all fake. Don't move." Nobody dared to move, not even Yuhan. He could fight in the front line, but he had never been to this place before. Although he could refer to the files, What he read in the books was completely different from what he had seen in real life. Besides, the files didn't mention such a thing. At this moment, nobody dared to move. However, the purple vine thyme was growing crazily. Han Fei cut some of them apart, only to discover that they were real and had the power to pull everybody. Even Han Fei felt that his blood was freezing when he saw what happened next. He found that the bottom of the ocean was twisted. The bottom of the ocean around them was slowly folding like a piece of paper, as if it were going to enshroud him. Immediately, the eyes of true vision appeared in Han Fei's eyes, but nothing happened. However, the crisis was getting greater and greater. Han Fei looked around. Everybody tried to move forward in all directions. However, when they looked back, everybody was gone. Han Fei also noticed this scene. Everybody was gone. That's outrageous. Am I the only one left? It was silent. All of a sudden, Han Fei felt that something was stabbing at him. His body was dodging out of instinct. However, hardly had he dodged it when he was shot by somebody with a clang. A 100-year demonic stinger? No, that's not right. If it were a 100-year demonic stinger, the ultra-quality battle suit would have been pierced through. Then, is it a spear? Somebody is attacking me. Han Fei discovered, to his shock, that his head was extremely clear, but he still couldn't break through the illusion. Everybody else must be in the same situation as him. He couldn't see them, and they couldn't see him either. Fuse. Han Fei chose to fuse without any hesitation. During his growth, Han Fei had chosen to fuse only a few times. For one thing, it was not easy to control Little Black's hostility, and for another, the yin-yang divine eyes were too conspicuous. However, now he couldn't even see anybody and was surrounded by crises. And the crisis was getting bigger and bigger. If he didn't fuse at this time, would he be blind? At the moment of fusion, a heavy hostility rose in Han Fei's heart. One of his eyes was black, the other white, and his face was expressionless. However, this fusion seemed to be clearer than the previous times. Han Fei even thought, could it be that I can control the state of fusion? The next moment, he saw a world of light and shadow. In the light and shadow, 8 people were cautiously probing. Among them, occasionally, someone would suddenly attack one of the shadows. Outside of the light and shadow, densely packed vines were slowly extending in front of everyone. A red stout tree man was stealthily approaching one of them. And there were 2 approaching Han Fei. One was a 100-year tree demon, and the other was a half-mermaid. Han Fei remembered that his name seemed to be Yu Chang, the guy who had just been resurrected from the immortal seal. A bloody smile appeared on Han Fei's face, and a trace of hostility inexplicably emerged. First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 783. Faced with such a weird scene, Han Fei smiled. Killing intent surged in his heart, and he tried to control his body. Feeling the sobriety in his head, Han Fei forced himself to suppress the hostility. Suddenly, Han Fei reached out, picked a leaf of the wisteria herb that was spreading over, and put it in his mouth. At that moment, Han Fei felt a coolness rush into his head, and the hostility was gradually dispelled. Wow! Good stuff! Han Fei sucked the leaf that was fatter than peppermint. It was slightly sticky and had the chewiness of chewing gum. Suddenly, Han Fei sensed that he was scanned by a weird perception. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw that the 1,000-year tree demon stopped and seemed to be staring at him. Although the 1,000-year tree demon didn't have eyes, Han Fei felt that it was looking at him. It seemed to have sensed that he was eating the peppermint leaf. As a highly intelligent spiritual plant creature, it was probably wondering why this different sea demon was eating the thyme leaf. Was it really stupid? Han Fei thought of something. I can't let the 1,000-year tree demon know that I've recovered. Besides, isn't this a good environment? Now that his head was so clear, the first thing that came to his mind was to kill Yu Chang not far away. A streak of light burst out and Han Fei charged at Yu Chang. However, Yu Chang was also a heavenly talent and his reaction was extremely fast. Han Fei activated the flying flower demon flash and flashed away at the moment of danger. But the next moment Han Fei smiled. Blindly dodging, look, where have you dodged to? Yu Chang dove into a patch of wisteria and white fragrant grass. Almost immediately, he was entangled by thousands of vines. Han Fei chased after him and activated another streak of light. At the same time, seeing that the 1,000-year tree demon didn't move, Han Fei said telepathically, "How about I cooperate with you to kill them?" Poochie! Han Fei pierced through Yu Chang. He raised his harpoon, and a sea-swallowing seashell appeared in his hand. In the next moment, Han Fei flashed away with the flying flower demon flash. Then, a terrifying power burst out and blasted at the vines of the wisteria herb. Han Fei sneered. Han Fei sneered. This dying strike couldn't find anyone, so it started to attack randomly? Han Fei put away the sea-swallowing seashell and continued speaking telepathically. I know you can understand what I'm saying. First, you used yourself as bait to lure them over to snatch the treasure and kill them. When they let their guard down, or even if they didn't need to let their guard down at all, once they stayed for too long, they would fall into a half-real, half-illusory illusion. And this wisteria time leaf is only to help them increase the sense of reality, allowing them to be in between reality and illusion. Truly a good method. Han Fei stood still, because the purple vine thymus grass no longer approached him. Suddenly, a pure language of spiritual power popped up in Han Fei's head. I understand your spiritual power, but I can't understand your language. But why did you kill your companion? Han Fei sneered. Look at me. Look at what they look like. Do you think we will be companions? The 1,000-year tree demon was silent for a moment. Okay, let's work together. Han Fei grinned and didn't attack Yu Ji and the others. He couldn't kill them even if he wanted to because he was wearing a divine weapon. However, the harpoon in his hand had been replaced by a semi-divine weapon, and a golden battle suit had appeared on his body. He had looted all of them, and he could pretend to be Yu Ji and the others. After all, even if Yu Hun and the others could break the illusion in the end, they wouldn't think of him when they found that their companions were all killed by a semi-divine weapon, because he didn't have a semi-divine weapon at all. Han Fei rushed to the other person unscrupulously. The man was appalled and knew that he was in danger. A phantom fish companion spirit appeared, and countless shadows seemed to be moving on its body. At the same time, he unleashed the most powerful Sea King strike in the direction of the danger. However, having vision and not having vision were two different concepts. Besides, Han Fei had the yin-yang divine eyes at this moment. Han Fei saw the man's attack path clearly. Poochie. After killing another one, Han Fei stabbed his hand into the man's chest and escaped with the flying flower demon flash the moment he took out his sea-swallowing seashell. However, as soon as Han Fei's figure appeared, he was blasted into the dense vines by a terrifying force. Pooh! Damn it! I underestimated the death hammer strike. Han Fei cast the divine healing technique on himself and felt that his hands were shivering. Thankfully, he was wearing a semi-divine battlesuit and blocked the attack with the golden harpoon. If he were wearing an ultra-quality battlesuit, he would have been heavily wounded. However, at this moment, Han Fei suddenly sensed that tremendous vines were rolling at him. Han Fei instantly spoke telepathically, "Hey! What's the meaning of this? We're allies now." However, the tree demon replied casually, "Those who are not of my race must be of different minds." Han Fei was lost for words. F*CKU. You must have a different heart. I'll kill you too if I decide to be ruthless. Han Fei opened his mouth and bit a bunch of peppermint leaves. His body trembled violently, and a powerful force burst out, shattering the vines. A terrifying knife intent swept out of his body and tore a gap in the vines. Nine-tailed mantis shrimp, capture this wretched tree demon. Hundreds of void chains appeared out of thin air from the ground. The 1,000-year tree demon didn't see this coming. How could this manfish be so strong? However, it was too late. Han Fei tore the vines apart and charged at him so fast that he was horrified. Swish! 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 The 1,000-year demonic stings stabbed at Han Fei crazily. However, every time the 1,000-year demonic stings appeared, Han Fei had already dodged them. Ah! When Han Fei stabbed out with his harpoon, he heard an unpleasant, ear-piercing scream. Han Fei frowned. Who unleashed the sea demon scream? Han Fei thought to himself, go ahead and scream. You'll all be dead by the time they come. The 1,000-year tree demon was in danger, and the 300-year demonic stings all stabbed at Han Fei. However, with all kinds of weird movements, none of the demonic stings could hit Han Fei. Bam! He dug a hole in the 1,000-year tree demon's body with a harpoon. Han Fei flashed out and slashed down with the harpoon as a knife. Wait a minute, let's cooperate. Cooperate my ass. I've given you a chance. Bam! Tough as the 1,000-year tree demon was, it couldn't resist the semi-divine harpoon that contained invincible fighting intent. Its body was simply shattered by Han Fei. At that moment, Han Fei suddenly realized that a red shadow had escaped to the ground. However, Han Fei didn't need to say anything. The void chains had blocked the demonic stings' way and pulled them out. Han Fei grabbed the red stings. Having no time to look at them, he quickly moved to Yu Han. Hey! Let's kill you while you're bragging. Han Fei reacted very quickly. Now that the 1,000-year tree demon was dead, the illusions couldn't stop Yu Ji and the others anymore. At this moment, Yu Ji was enshrouded in a high-pressure water ball. She seemed to be preparing to launch a weird attack. Han Fei simply extended the sea racing technique with the 64-dimensional ichthyosaur transformation and moved at the highest speed. The void chains had already enshrouded Yu Han. Yu Han seemed to know that danger was lurking. His body glowed so brilliantly that all the sea vine grasses within 100 meters exploded. However, Han Fei was too busy with the majestic mystic spell to care about that. Hiu! Bam! Han Fei grunted and blew up Yu Han's head with his harpoon. He was about to give Yu Han another blow when he was resurrected. However, in Han Fei's bracelet, old Shu Shan suddenly said, "The illusions can't last 2 seconds." 2 seconds later, as Yu Ji's terrifying high-pressure water ball spread in all directions, everybody emerged from the illusions. What they saw in the end wasn't that Yu Ji burst out, but that Han Fei was swimming from the bottom of the ocean with blood on his lips. Where Han Fei left, a bunch of red trees had collapsed. Everybody could tell that it was a 1,000-year tree demon. At this moment, Han Fei was holding a broken ultra-quality demonic harpoon, and his eyes were no longer black and white. He vomited 2 mouthfuls of blood and the sticky peppermint leaves. "Stop!" Yuing bellowed. Yu Ji breathed heavily. "Who blew up my head? Stand out!" Hardly had Yu Han returned from the void when he glanced around, only to find that the illusions were over. Han Fei was the furthest away from him. Not far away from him was the broken 1,000-year tree demon, which was obviously broken by Han Fei. Yu Ji was breathing heavily, and weird water waves were surging around her. He had guessed what attack Yu Ji used and ruled it out. Then, it could only be Yu Ing and Yu Bing. It was because Yu Bing was the other guy who had a semi-divine weapon. The terrifying attack just now could have chopped off his head if it weren't a semi-divine weapon. The guy named Yu Bing was stunned to see that Yu Han was looking at him unkindly. He asked in surprise, "Lord Yu Han? You used the immortal seal?" Yu Han couldn't have looked more awful. He looked at Yu Ing and demanded angrily, "Which of you attacked me just now?" Both of them frowned, and Yu Ing said, "I was cutting the vines just now." Yu Han instantly looked at Yu Bing, who was at a loss. "I didn't know who tried to kill me just now. I blocked the attack." Yu Han couldn't have been more aggrieved. He was trembling in fury, but he couldn't kill him. He could only glare at Yu Bing. "I didn't die in the front line, but you almost killed me just now." Second update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 784. Yu Ji frowned. How did 3 of them die in such a short time? Yes, 2 of them were killed by Han Fei, and Han Fei didn't know who killed the last one. All in all, it was a mess just now. There was the sound of water splashing and the sound of explosions. No one could see it, so who would know who killed who? The remaining 6 people were all silent. Even if they killed their companions, they couldn't say it. Wouldn't they be idiots if they did? Even if they survived the treasure trove, they would be punished after they returned to the 10,000 Demon Valley. Suddenly, a cold voice said, "Can we stop talking? There are still 300-year tree demons." It was exactly Han Fei who spoke. At this moment, Han Fei was indifferent, as if he couldn't care less about who was killed. He seemed to be acting as if somebody owed him $8 million. Everybody shivered. "Where are the other 3? Han Fei pointed with his harpoon. "Over there, over there, over there." The 100-year tree demons that Han Fei pointed out immediately pulled their roots and ran crazily. They had no idea when they were exposed. However, they couldn't be faster than Yu Hun and the others, who were infuriated no matter how fast they ran with their root. After no more than 100 seconds, the 300-year tree demons were cut into pieces. What frustrated Yu Hun and the others was that they didn't get any demonic stings. Without the control of the 100-year tree demons and the 1,000-year tree demons, the vines all retreated and peace was restored. Han Fei landed on the ground and cut a lot of purple vine white vanilla with his harpoon, before he stuffed them into his sea-swallowing seashell. Yu Ji frowned. "Yu Fei, what are you doing?" Yu Hun asked too, "Why are you cutting the grass?" Han Fei said without raising his head, "It can refresh the brain and keep the head clear. Also, it tastes good." Everybody. "What do you mean it tastes good? We just experienced a life and death battle. You're telling us that the grass tastes good?" Yu Ji frowned hard. "Yu Fei, how did you locate the 1,000-year tree demons? How did you know where the 100-year tree demons were?" Hearing Yu Ji's question, Yu Hun asked Han Fei too, "Weren't you caught in illusions just now? Can you see what just happened?" Han Fei shook his head. "I didn't see anyone." Yu Ji asked, "Then why did you?" Han Fei pointed at the wisteria white vanilla and said, "Just now, I was almost tied up by these and bit off one of them. Then, I found that holding this leaf in my mouth can refresh me. Then, I realized that there was a flaw in the illusion. Just now, there was a gap where the vines had spread over. The gathering of spiritual energy was too dense, so I tested it and found that they were here." Yu Ying interjected, "How can you see the distribution of spiritual energy?" Han Fei also pretended to be shocked. "Can't you see? Isn't this a necessary survival skill for marine creatures?" Everyone. Yu Ying was lost for words and thought to herself, maybe it's just a legend. Who the F***ck told you that seeing spiritual energy gathering is a necessary survival skill? Why didn't I know? Yu Ji was silent. Is this the legend? Yu Hun was no longer angry at Han Fei. He even complimented, "Thankfully, you killed the 1,000-year tree demon in time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to keep my head." Han Fei secretly sneered. "If the 1,000-year tree demon hadn't been untrustworthy and the illusion hadn't been broken so quickly, you would have been killed by me." Now, the situation here had been settled. Han Fei wasn't in a hurry. It had only been 6 hours since they came in, and only 6 of the 11 people were left. There would be plenty of time in the future. Yours truly loves this sort of chaotic environment the most. Yu Ji said, "It's already happened. Everybody was exhausted just now. Now that the crisis here has been resolved, I suggest we take a rest here." Yu Hun nodded. "That's right. We need to reflect on ourselves. Don't be too greedy." Han Fei ignored them and cut the grass on his own. After cutting a bunch of them, he threw some of them into the spiritual spring in Forge the Universe to be nurtured. This thing was really good. It could even suppress Little Black's brutality. He could keep a piece of it in his mouth during a battle to keep his head clear. It was even more useful than the 6 God Brain nourishing fluid. After cutting for a while, Han Fei found that Yu De, who was the only one who didn't have a semi-divine weapon, was also cutting the grass. Han Fei suddenly stood up and stopped cutting. Yu De grinned. I've used the immortal seal. If I die again, I'll really be screwed. I need to keep my head clear after that. Han Fei nodded and thought to himself, do you think you're me? If you encounter such illusions again, the clearer your head is, the faster you'll die. What a useless fish. Suddenly, Han Fei sensed that there seemed to be a long thing with roots below the ground. Immediately, Han Fei stopped cutting the grass and began to dig. Everyone. Ewing asked, Yu Fei, why are you digging again? Han Fei said coldly, pay attention to your surroundings. Exploring the ground and excavating treasures are necessary methods for marine creatures to survive. Everybody's face instantly darkened. Necessary methods? You really have a lot of necessary methods, however. Yu Bing approached him. Are you saying that there's treasure down there? Han Fei said coldly, it's mine. Immediately, everybody spread out their senses and found that there seemed to be a long thing 10 meters below the ground. They didn't know what it was. But it was a pity that there was only one of it. They couldn't compete with Han Fei for it. After all, Han Fei just killed the 1,000-year tree demon and rescued them. A moment later, a red fruit that looked like a carrot with 6 long roots appeared. Intense energy and spiritual energy were spreading from it. Everybody's eyes glittered when they saw it. It was a good thing. Information popped up in Han Fei's eyes. Name: six-tailed ginseng. Introduction. This is a six-tailed ginseng that grows in the purple vine 100 herbs. It absorbs the essence of the herbs and contains abundant energy and spiritual energy. It can enhance the 5 senses and improve spiritual power. Level: demon level. Quality: ultra spiritual energy greater than 498,000 points. Effect: if you eat it directly, you'll increase a lot of spiritual energy and your spiritual power by 10%. It's not effective for creatures above the hidden fisher level. After taking it, you can't eat other similar spiritual fruits for 100 days. It won't work if you eat it again. How rare this thing was! Han Fei was delighted. This is good. It's even better than the sunflower fruit just now. It's rich in spiritual energy and energy. It can't be better for a breakthrough. Sensing that he had consumed a lot of spiritual energy, Han Fei simply plucked a long root and stuffed it into his mouth. Everyone. Yu Ji asked, you're just eating it? Ewing asked, aren't you scared that it's poisonous? Yu Han asked, do you know what it's for? I don't even know it, and you're eating it? Han Fei said casually, it can tell if a spiritual fruit is poisonous. Everybody said at the same time, it's a necessary skill for sea creatures to survive. Ewing rolled her eyes. Can't you say something else? After a brief daze, Han Fei nodded. You're right. You're a fast learner. Everyone. About half an hour passed, and no other sea demons came. Obviously, the sea demon screams just now didn't attract anyone. It meant that they were the only team within 300 kilometers. No. To be exact, they were half a team. Yu Han rose and said solemnly, let's keep going, but we can't act recklessly this time. Yu Fei, if something similar happens again, well, check it with your necessary skills first. If it's fine, we'll take action. Yu Han was good at fighting, but he didn't know anything about survival skills at all. Well, he wouldn't have lived to this day if he didn't know anything. It was just that he had never seen such a weird place before. Han Fei nodded and thought to himself, you're the first one to die in danger. After they rose, they returned to the forest of giant algae under everybody's insistence. After all, the forest of giant algae was less dangerous. If it were a place like the Wisteria White Vanilla, 5 of them would have been killed after only one visit. Who could they complain to? As a matter of fact, Han Fei didn't find a chance to attack after swimming for half a day. However, he did find a lot of spiritual fruits and other treasures. Almost everyone received 3 pills. More than 20 100-year tree demons were killed. Han Fei didn't even need to do anything. Yuhun and the others, who hated the tree demons to the core, simply went forward and killed them without any mercy. For some reason, Han Fei inexplicably felt that he had become the new captain. He seemed to be even more prestigious than Yuhun. At this moment, Yuda was mumbling, "How big is this place exactly? We've been walking for such a long time, but we haven't run into a single person, not even a human being." Suddenly, in Han Fei's perception, he found a messy place 40 kilometers away. A great battle seemed to have just taken place there. Han Fei swam in that direction calmly. When he was 20 kilometers away, Yuhun roared, "Follow me. I've found a problem." A moment later, everybody stood on ruins. All sorts of branches and leaves were scattered here, and there were traces of swords and sabers slicing through everything. There was also a terrifying fist imprint, and the remains of a 1,000-year tree demon lay in the crater created by the fist imprint. Judging from the aftershock of the fist mark, Han Fei suddenly felt inexplicably familiar. Huh? The fist mark of the Chao family? Chao Chiu is here? Third chapter. Asking for votes. Asking for votes. Only 3 chapters today. End of this chapter.